Here we go. We're blasting off. We're blasting off. Let the people know. Did you see they got you with the Stanley Cup playoffs? You could park a Chevy Suburban in each one of PK Subban's leg pants right now. That's insane. Yo, respect. Respect for the big pants guys, okay? Respect. Keeping the big pant game alive. That's important for me. This is a big movement for me. You already know. You already know what it is. Bon, not subbing. All right, whatever. Someone with social media post this. I have none. Clip his choice. What is this? That feels almost misplaced. You don't even seem that invested. Which, okay. The Onion does it again. Yeah, this is
trouble in.
Okay, we'll look at that in a second. But SpongeBob Big Guy Pants, okay, yeah. It just sucks that the Big Guy Pants are going away when that song came out. I am noticing that song came out and the Big Guy Pants all of a sudden fell out of favor, you know? What is this? Had the pleasure of talking about the rise of Zohran Mamdani and Hassan Piker in the EU Parliament today. Wait, what? What the hell? Also, the fit goes crazy. The fit goes crazy. Let's go. EU Parliament is going to freak the fuck out. They ain't never seen a white boy with that kind of Chinese swag before, okay? They ain't never seen that. Stop spamming. That's my job. Dripped out the wazoo. Eric, god damn. He made a video about the Uyghur that's really good. Not sure if you watched it yet. I have not. Oh, yeah. Echelon Insights dropped the poll, and they fucking put me on the poll, which is crazy. Okay? New national poll dropped, and they added me into the poll, apparently. We're going to be taking a look at that, obviously. April 2026 verified voter omnibus. New national poll dropped. Hassan Piker at -8. AOC at -4. Josh Shapiro at +7. Israel at +2. Israel at +2. 51% of Dems say leaders should condemn your views. 30% say you're an asset. 68% of Dems want socialism. Most confusing poll of all time. They slandered you as well. I don't know. I don't know what this just came out. I didn't see it, but it's wonderful. Bro fell off. Yeah, 79% of Democrats don't know who the fuck I am. And also, the respondents want Kamala Harris. It's a majority of Harris, Shapiro, Buttigieg, and Newsom voters that were polled. Yeah. Trump seems like he wants the Dems to win at this point. Look at the crosstabs. That's why they blasted you on Fox News, to make you look bad on national polls. Yeah. And of course, there wasn't, I mean, look, the people that obviously look at these polls are the very same people that are like, I think Kamala Harris will win the next election. Okay. Oh my God. Bowdoin College. If you, Aphex Twizzy, please, we get it. You're doing great work for Bowdoin Socialists. Okay. I swear to God, they're going to end your chapter. They're going to end your chapter. They're going to stop the Bowdoin Socialism movement. Because of you, single-handedly, okay? Single-handedly, everything that you've done is going to cause socialism to end in Bowdoin College. Identify as conservative, 37, as liberal, 32. Anyway. Yeah. This is these are some of the we'll look at this poll in a second. We'll look at this poll in a second. Yeah. The word on the street is I'm both washed. Word on the street is I'm both disliked intensely, and also no one has ever heard of me or have no opinion of me. Okay? And yet, the very same people that are apparently running this poll, there's a 68% of Democrats are like, I love socialism. I want socialism. I'm a socialist myself, except I hate all of the closest associations to socialist politics from Democrats like AOC. And I also despise Hassan Piker. They want socialism, and they also are +2 on Israel. I love socialism. I hate AOC. I love Josh Shapiro. That's the when you look at the crosstabs, you're about 50-50 among Dems, but twice as many Republicans know who you are and hate you. Yeah. And I welcome their hatred. Okay. We'll look at this. We'll look at this in a second. Yeah, the truest expression of American politics is a labor Zionist. That's why Bernie is the most popular politician in the country. There's also an indictment of how little people watch mainstream media nowadays, Lamau, because of how much of them supposedly watch mainstream media people. Yeah. The Congresswoman resigned. Mark Levin and Alan Dershowitz talked about you on the radio. Dersh compared you to Goebbels.
Many of the others.
What do you make about the fact this Hassan Piker?
Oh, Jesus Christ. Dude, that's fucking unbelievable. All right, well, we'll get into that in a second. Jesus Christ, dude. Yeah, I love being acknowledged by my goats, the goats, the true goats of American politics, okay? Mark Levin and Alan the Dershowitz. Wow. What a time to be alive, folks. What a time to be alive. Just in time. Just in time to get mentioned by the Dersh, who seemingly has left the Democratic plantation, okay? Once again, as a lifelong Democrat, this is, I believe, the 7th time that Alan the Dershowitz has left the Democratic plantation. I like that he just keeps writing this exact same article. What will we do? What will anybody do without the Dersh? Jeffrey Epstein guy? Alan Dershowitz, the pedophile lawyer? Why does r/538 hate you? They posted the Echelon Insights poll, but didn't post the data for progress one. Are all polling bros moderates? Buddy, you went to the Reddit. You went to a subreddit that is designed around Nate Silver's Operation 538. Of course it's going to have some of the most unvarnished neoliberal thought. These guys are holding on. They're carrying the flame of neoliberalism. The only people that still unironically abide by the gospel of neoliberalism are the people on subreddits like that. Yeah, what's next, dude? You went to r/Israel and they had an unfavorable opinion of me? Wow. Hey, man, I went into the comment section of Fox News and they had a really, really negative opinion of you. What's that about? Yeah, blast off. I already blasted off. Okay, that's good. That's a good blast off for later. If I do play Pragmata. Anyway, where was I? All right. Well, let's get started on that. Let's get started on this Echelon Insights poll that Donald Trump's job approval stands at 42% approve, 57% disapprove. A must read by the Democratic majority for Israel. That's so funny. I've warned Democrats for months about Hassan Piker's efforts to insert himself into our party. Read my op-ed in the Washington Post about why the normalization of Piker within the Democratic Party is a mistake. And it's one that Democrats cannot afford to make. It's just, there's nothing funnier to me than guys that have no fucking motion whatsoever. The Echelon crosstabs are so funny. You have one positive demographic, and that's moms of kids under 18, where you're +6, truth nuke. Let's go. That's what I'm talking about, dude. That's what I'm talking about. I don't like to be perceived this much. And lately, I've been getting perceived quite a bit. Okay? I've been getting perceived an unbelievable amount, and I don't like it, but I'll take it. Why are they treating and mentioning you like someone who has been in the Epstein files or a terrorist? Because from the perspective of the super wealthy in this country that want to keep their stranglehold on American politics, on both parties, specifically the Democratic Party, I am basically a terrorist. That's their attitude. Their attitude towards me is, if you're Israel first, if you want to maintain America's relationship with Israel, then I'm more dangerous than a terrorist, because they look at someone like myself and they think, oh, dude, he's convincing people to sever ties with Israel. We have to take care of him. From the perspective of people who are like, no, we can't have Medicare for all, otherwise it will destroy our profit margins for the healthcare, for the for-profit healthcare industry, then yeah, I am a genuine threat. I am a genuine fucking threat. So that's the reason why. And that's why they're treating me like this. Anyway, people are saying United States are headed in the wrong track, 60%, right direction, 34%, unsure, 6%. You know what? Let me just fucking download this, okay? Open this file in Chrome and let's take a look at it in Chrome. Do you have a favorable or unfavorable view of the following groups or individuals that have been in the news lately? Okay. Hassan Piker is 7% favorable, 15% unfavorable. Okay. Israel Affairs, American Israel Public Affairs Committee, 18% favorable, 25% unfavorable. I wonder what the crosstabs of this look like. Tucker Carlson, 22% favorable, 49% unfavorable. Candace Owens, 18% favorable, 35% unfavorable. Megyn Kelly, 22 to 38. Donald Trump, 42 to 57. Now, this is basically what the smear campaign did, right? And what the smear campaign did. First, they run a multi-million 2-week negative PR campaign against you in the media. Then they drop a poll to show how bad you are. Yeah, all this shows, in my opinion, is that, like, for the people that respond to polls like this, like the older voters, there's still a decent amount of people who, who appreciate what I'm doing. I suspect that this is both Republicans and Democrats. So most Democrats don't know who I am / don't, have I assume a 50-50 breakdown. But Republicans probably know who I am by wider margins and don't like me at all, especially considering that, the commentary on the Fox News side has been relentless. So under normal circumstances, when Republicans attack this hard, Democrats and liberal outlets are supposed to defend. But because liberal outlets also don't defend, I am in this unique predicament where I am an island where it's just the independent media that defends me every now and then, and nobody else. Like the allies that I have are on the independent side, on left media side. But mainstream media wise, I don't have a lot of allies like Dana Bash, Jake Tapper. Like, they're not going to do coverage that defends me, right? It's just not going to happen. You were introduced as a Hamas lover in this poll. That's pretty funny. Do you approve or disapprove the way Donald Trump is handling the economy? Do you approve or disapprove? Where are the fucking polls? Where are the questions about me? Control F. Hassan Piker is a popular progressive online streamer who has hosted Democratic politicians. He said America deserved 9/11, Hamas is better than Israel, and bemoaned the collapse of the Soviet Union because it made America's global power uncontested and resulted in humanitarian crises. Based on what you know about Hassan Piker. Wait, even with his views are antithetical to what most Democrats believe in, party leaders should say so. Even if I disagree with some of his views, he reaches new audiences and helps Democrats and defeat the MAGA right 21%. I agree with his views and he's an asset to the Democratic Party 9%. Unsure 19%. Brother, that is the pushiest of all push polls that I have ever fucking heard of. How is that a question, dude? Hassan Piker has said every American should be shot and killed. What do you think about his worldview? That's awesome. That framing is crazy. They're basically saying Hassan Piker is Hamas. This guy is evil. Do you like evil? How much do you like evil? Yeah. Hassan Piker has said you, yes, you, the person responding to this poll right now, must die. What do you think about that? That's awesome. I mean, like I said, I don't like to be perceived, but goddamn, we've had a week. More proof that they see you as a very legitimate threat. Yeah. Tommy Vitor interviewed Elon Goldenberg of J Street.
Welcome to Pod Save America. I'm John.
And Hassan I came up again and again and again. Where is it? Where is the Tommy Vitor conversation? Oh, is this the guy? Damn, J Street are my ops too. Type in needs for the socialism poll. Okay, hold on. We'll look at this. Which political direction do you think Democrats need to move to win the next presidential election? To the center politically. Again, 42%. Okay, dude. Democrats need to be more or less combative against Donald Trump. Much more combative, 86%. Democratic socialism, where the government can be relied on to provide basic needs, is the best way to build an equitable economy and society. 68%.
Bruh.
What the fuck is happening, dude? Which of the following statements do you agree with more? Everyone is like, no, we love democratic socialism. That's the best. What is this poll, man? The median voter is so unbelievably insane. Like, that's not really a description of socialism, though. That's like modern liberalism or social democracy. I mean, it doesn't matter. It's like, why are they writing about democratic socialism in a favorable manner that is like appealing to as broad an audience as possible? Like, they did the reversal to someone like myself, where they're like, people love democratic socialism and hate Hassan Piker. He's dangerous and scary. You're polling at -8, not -8% in my 8-person reading group for your information. Thank you. Yeah, we must move to the center, fight Donald Trump viciously, and also advance American democratic socialism. The American mind is an enigma, okay? It is impossible to understand the median voter. That's why I say just keep pushing your values over and over again, and you know, just say the truth. And eventually people will understand where you're coming from. Bro's meat stays in the Midas mouth. Wait, what? In the Midas mouth? The media's mouth. Why am I reading it like that? John thinks the Einstein piece corrected the record. Yeah, I don't know why he said that, especially considering that I texted him personally, and he was like, he was like, yeah, I did my own research afterwards. None of the things that I said about Einstein was wrong. Appreciate the thoughtful criticism. I wrote him a longer response because arguing on here is dumb, but just to summarize, good corrective to the Einstein story that I fully admit to not knowing in advance, though I'm not sure the full details change Hassan's broader critique of Zionism in a meaningful way, whether or not you agree with it. If I had another hour, Hassan, I absolutely would have focused on his China-Russia views, but thought it was more valuable in this particular discussion to dig on the controversy at hand than to do a quicker drive-by on all his views and statements. But again, genuinely appreciate Yair's take. I think fair enough to critique regarding the new medium and incentives, though I would have also argued that many of those incentives exist for columnists and existed even pre-internet age, and that the distinction between capital R reporters and columnists is an important one. Okay. Ben Rhodes spent 2 hours on foreign policy, including Cuba, Russia, China, and Taiwan with Hassan. Yeah, that's like another, that's another side of this as well. You've had Hassan Piker on your Crooked Media podcast 7 times, and not once you've brought up his liberal authoritarianism. It's like, yeah, you know what's really funny about these guys? My positions on Crimea. Do you want to know the most popular American politician who had the exact same position on Crimea? It was Barack Hussein Obama, who happens to be the Podjans' former boss. Okay? What a lot of these liberals, once again, going back to the median voter who doesn't understand what they're fucking saying, who are lost in the sauce, where they're like, oh, we want to advance democratic socialism, but also we want to, move to the center, is that they all love Barack Obama, and Barack Obama's assessment was identical at the time, where it was like, what are we supposed to do? Go to fucking war with Russia because they annexed Crimea in an effort to maintain the Sevastopol base that they have? Like, he chose not to agitate further in that instance. Okay? It's so crazy. And I make a very specific distinction between Crimea and what Russia has done since then. But people seemingly find that to be, unbelievably on Adolf Putler's camp or something. Wait, what was the Einstein correction? The Einstein correction is that Albert Einstein... Yair Rosenberg made it seem like Albert Einstein, I covered it yesterday. He made it seem like Albert Einstein was like super on board with what everything the early Zionist movement was doing, and talked about extensively the first 20 years of Albert Einstein's assessment on Zionism, and which I wasn't talking about at all. I was talking about like Einstein's perspective on Zionism, which would be considered like dangerous and scary by today's standards, okay? Um, yeah, Einstein had a bit more favorable view of Israel than a 30-second clip may have suggested. Yeah, but even in that 30-second clip, I'm saying that with today's standards, like my assessment on Zionism and Einstein's assessment or his warnings on Zionism were not all that far apart. It's just true, you know? Like his warnings after the initial atrocities in like 1946 and in 1947 that led to the development of the nation state of Israel was that these guys were behaving, and they were behaving like fascists. He signed off on a letter that said as much. You know, he has at times critiqued what Irgun was doing specifically. Menachem Begin coming to the United States of America, he signed off on a letter that said like this guy is repulsive, and it's so over. What do you mean? Yeah, it's very funny that like Yair Rosenberg's like, I wrote my my undergraduate thesis on this, and then he just like fails to address the point that I was making at all. It may be that their thoughts on the Democrat Party moving to the center might be because the median voters think they're grifted to the right too much. No. Wasn't the main correction that he wasn't asked to be the first, but instead the second president of Israel? Yeah, I think that's what it was. Yeah, I got that wrong. The American people want cultural social conservatism and economic socialism. They want the aesthetics of the Brady Bunch. That's what their good old days are. Mind you, it's mostly white people. Yeah, Einstein would be pro-modern Israel take, gives the same energy as Republicans saying MLK would have been a January 6th. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Not that it fucking matters at the end of the day. In Einstein's letters, he would be like, it's so cool what Israel is doing, and I hope they don't do Nazi stuff. No, he was like, I'm worried that they're doing, Nazi stuff. And also, we can't do that kind of stuff. We're Jewish. The Holocaust happened. What are you guys talking about? Like, or, I don't know what he was saying at the time, but, something along those lines where he was like, this is, we need to do, free immigration into this territory and have a commitment to like binational state where we have to play nice with the Arab inhabitants of the land, directly at odds with the attitude represented by Zionists initially, which was this is a land without people for a people without land. You feel me? Yeah, he was very specifically opposed to an ethno-state, which is what Zionism has created. So I don't know where the fuck people were coming from, Yeah, Einstein was for a secular state that allowed open immigration for Jews, but didn't care if the majority was Palestinian. Any modern person who says they want a state that has no demographic majority Jewish population would be considered anti-Zionist. Exactly. That is the main point of contention. That's why they keep yelling at Zohar Mamdani too. It's very frustrating. Anyway, it's not like Einstein is like, like you have to agree or disagree with Einstein or whatever. There's plenty of intelligent people that had the wrong assessment on Israel at the time as well. MLK was one of them, right? Ultimately, it doesn't matter. I was just using that as a complementary assessment to my worldview that a lot of people get frustrated by. Einstein opposed Zionist colonization of Palestine and predicted the current catastrophe. Yeah. When a real and final catastrophe should befall us in Palestine, the first responsible for it would be the British, and the second responsible for it would be the terrorist organizations built up from our own ranks. I am not willing to see anybody associated with those misled and criminal people. A few weeks before the creation of the State of Israel, Shepard Rifkin, a New York-based representative of the Stern Group, a Zionist paramilitary organization founded in mandatory Palestine, requested that representatives of the group meet with Albert Einstein of the United States, the greatest Jewish figure of the time. According to journalist I.F. Stone, Einstein's response was unequivocal. Yeah. And I literally said it in that conversation as well. If you listen, I chose my words very carefully. The only thing I got wrong was the idea that Einstein was the invited to be the first president. That's not the case. I guess it was the second. And it's so funny it's so funny to like take a look at this this statement and be like, no, he would love modern Israel. Like, what do you mean? Can't you tell? He definitely wants he definitely cares about the demographic concerns to make sure that there's a Jewish ethno state. It's just ridiculous. It's it's ironic that the people that are claiming that I'm bastardizing Einstein's perspective, Yair Rosenberg said that, are the ones who are literally messaging are the ones who are literally chopping up his the totality of his assessment to imply that he would be in favor of the modern state of Israel. He would just see through the complexities and the nuances and still end up on the side of it's good that there is a fascist state advancing the fascist cause of maintaining a Jewish majority ethno state that's like dominating the Arab inhabitants of the land, which is something that he was against. Why did Einstein refuse the presidency of Israel? By Princeton Alumni Weekly. The article One Jew's Journey starts with a comment from David Ben-Gurion, the first prime minister of Israel, met with Einstein in Princeton, hoping to convince the venerable scientist to be the first president of to be the president of Israel. Einstein refused, and the quotes below might give us on clues why he refused. In a December 4th, 1984 letter to the New York Times, Einstein, among other 28 prominent members of the Jewish community, wrote that the then current Israeli political party, the Freedom Party, led by Menachem Begin, was a political party closely akin to its organization, methods, political philosophy, and social appeal to the Nazis and the fascist parties. It is inconceivable that those who oppose fascism throughout the world, if correctly informed as to Mr. Begin's political record and perspectives, could add their names and support their movement he represents. Referring to the massacre of Arabs in Jews in the village of Deir Yassin, the letter said, the Jewish terrorists, far from being ashamed of their act, were proud of this massacre, publicized it widely. The Deir Yassin incident exemplifies the characters and actions of the Freedom Party. Further describing the Freedom Party, the letter stated it includes an admixture of ultranationalism, religious mysticism, and racial superiority, and that it bore the unmistakable stamp of a fascist party for whom terrorism against Jews, Arabs, and British alike, and misrepresentation are means, and a leader state is the goal. The letter ended by saying that America should turn its back on Begin and not support this latest manifestation of fascism. But there's much more. 10 years prior to this letter, Einstein declared at New York's Commodore Hotel that a Jewish state with borders and an army to protect those borders ran counter to the essential nature of Judaism. Also in 1946, he told the Anglo-American Committee of Inquiry on the Palestinian issue, I cannot understand why a Jewish state, is needed. It is connected with narrow-minded and economic obstacles. I believe it's bad. In 1938 speech, Einstein said, I should much rather see the reasonable agreement with the Arabs on the basis of living together in peace than a creation of a Jewish state. And in a quote dating back to the late 1920s, Einstein declared, should we be unable to find a way to honest cooperation and honest pacts with the Arabs, then we have learned absolutely nothing during our 2,000 years of suffering and deserve all that will come to us. Many of these and other quotes can be found in the book Einstein on Israel and Zionism, his provocative ideas about the Middle East by Fred Jerome. Does Rabbi Gil Steinlauf believe it's anti-Semitic to single out Israel because it's the only Jewish state? If so, does he also believe that Einstein was a Jew hater? And would he assign the same description to one who verbalized the same sentiments as did Einstein in the above quotes? Who do you think is closer? A guy who criticizes the current nation state of Israel on exactly the same boundaries that Einstein did even back then and had consistently over and over again for multiple decades, or a guy who currently defends the current nation state of Israel but will like lean into the side of criticism to say, oh, it's just a manifestation of the far right expressions of Israeli politics and nothing deeply problematic about the inception and the continuation of the demographic needs of an ethno state, a demographic majority. In his criticisms of what I brought up about Einstein's take on Israel, his warnings have come true, which was my position. Here, that's what I did. I also did directly talk to John as well, but I should, still put that here as well. Furthermore, Albert Einstein a passionate supporter of a Jewish homeland in Palestine, was even offered the presidency in Israel in 1952, would now be branded anti-Semitic for criticizing Israeli policies under today's IHRA framework that Harvard University just adopted. Yeah. He has said this over and over again. I mean, I already talked about this as well. This is from January 21st, 1946. This is before Deir Yassin. Dear sir, I have served as witness before the Anglo-American Inquiry Commission on Palestine for the sole purpose to act in favor of our just cause. But it is, of course, impossible to prevent distortion by the press. I am in favor of Palestine being developed as Jewish homeland, but not as a separate state. It seems to me a matter for simple common sense that we cannot ask to be given the political rule over Palestine where 2/3 of the population are not Jewish. What we can and should ask is a secured binational status in Palestine with free immigration. If we ask more, we are damaging our own cause, and it is difficult for me to grasp that our Zionists are taking such an intransigent position which can only impair our cause. I think it's truly disingenuous to present Einstein as being in favor of like the modern state of Israel, given the amount of information that we do have about what he fucking said and what he warned about what Zionism was turning into. Anyway, unfortunately, the first edition of his text published by New York Publishing House had a very small print run, was never promoted or made into an ebook, and was sold out in no time. That's why Barca Books has published a new edition with the agreement of Jocelyn Jerome, the author's widow. It was in Germany in the 1920s, a time of rampant anti-Semitism, when the theory of relativity was attacked as Jewish science, that Einstein was drawn to the Zionist movement. It was not until 1914, when he arrived in Germany, that he discovered for the first time that he was a Jew, a discovery he attributed to more to Gentiles than Jews. Before that, he had seen himself as a member of the human species. He called himself a cultural Zionist, but as early as 1921, Kurt Blumenfeld, a Zionist activist sent to recruit Einstein, warned Chaim Weizmann, the future president of Israel, about the great scientist. Einstein, as you know, is no Zionist, and I ask you not to try to make him a Zionist or to attach him to our organization. Einstein, who leans to socialism, feels very involved with the cause of Jewish labor and Jewish workers. I heard that you expect Einstein to give speeches. Please be quite careful with that. Einstein often says things out of naivete which are unwelcome by us. Yeah. I am not sure why Yair thinks Einstein's support of Jewish diaspora in the 2 decades leading to the Holocaust is somehow a tacit approval of settler colonialism. It's disingenuous at best, and I think a bastardization, a deliberate bastardization at worst, because not only was he saying like, hey, we should find a place where Jews are not harmed leading up to the Holocaust. After the Holocaust, he literally said, hey, the place that we have found where Jews should not be harmed, the guys who are designing the society are behaving like the guys who did the Holocaust. What more do you want to fucking hear from a guy who was like very critical? Very critical of like even the early the Zionist brigades and the violence that they subjected the Arab inhabitants to. That's it. What the fuck do you think that guy's position would look like for that guy who's a socialist? What would his position be on, like, finding out about the existence of Otzma Yehudit, Itamar Ben-Gvir, and the like? What do you think he would say? Apart from Einstein's supposed naivete, Blumenfeld could not have said it better. Einstein would be a constant obstacle to the Zionist project of the colonization of Palestine and the creation of the State of Israel until his death in 1955. Here are some examples of the positions he took. His exchanges with Chaim Weizmann, the future president of Israel, illustrate how important Einstein was to the Zionists, but more importantly, how his views differed from theirs. In a letter to Weizmann on November 25th, 1929, he wrote, if we are not able to find an honest cooperation and honest pacts with the Arabs, then we have learned nothing during our 2,000 years of suffering and deserve the fate which befall us. The idea of the fate which befalls us occurs often. In 1929, he seems to have already foreseen the nation state that the Zionists dreamed of creating, without honest cooperation and honest pacts with their Palestinian neighbors, would become what it is today, namely the most dangerous place in the world for Jews to live. A few weeks later, on December 14, 1924, he wrote to Selig Brodetsky of the Zionist organization in London, I'm happy that we have no power. If national pigheadedness proves strong enough, then we will knock our brains out as we deserve. Furthermore, Leon Simon, one of the early editors and translators, wrote, there is in Professor Einstein's nationalism no room for any kind of aggressiveness or chauvinism. For him, the domination of Jew over Arab in Palestine, or the perpetuation or a state of mutual hostility between the two peoples, would mean the failure of Zionism. Do you know how many Zionists early on that saw the horrors of the Holocaust, especially, okay, or were close in proximity to those horrors, had an identical viewpoint to Albert Einstein. I will be interviewing one of these people when I go to Vancouver. His name is Gabor Mate. Okay, Gabor Mate was a baby in a concentration camp, in a death camp. He survived the Holocaust. He's a Holocaust survivor. His early assessment of Zionism was not dissimilar to Albert Einstein. Okay, he was like, we need a place. We need a place of refuge, a place of safety for all Jews. Okay, this is a normal point. This was why. This is how Zionism was able to take root. Gabor Mate is an avowed critic of the current state of Israel and also an anti-Zionist. Okay? He talks very openly about his own development, his evolution of his worldview on Israel and Zionism in particular. The idea that Albert Einstein would be in favor of the modern fascist nation state of Israel when he very clearly kept criticizing the direction that the modern nation state of Israel was heading in is unbelievably disingenuous. Unlike a vast majority of Zionists, Einstein's support for a possible Jewish homeland, not a state, was not limited to Palestine. There was nothing religious in his commitment. Some Zionists advocated for the establishment of such a homeland in China, Peru, or Birobidzhan in the Soviet Union, but in full agreement with the state authorities and populations in each case. Einstein supported these steps. For example, the Jewish homeland of Birobidzhan in the Soviet Union after the Second World War, he wrote, "We must not forget that in those years of atrocious persecutions of Jewish people, Soviet Russia has been the only great nation who has saved hundreds of thousands of Jewish lives. The enterprise to settle 30,000 Jewish war orphans in Birobidzhan and secure for them in this way a satisfying and happy future is new proof for the humane attitude of Russia towards our Jewish people. In helping in this cause, we will contribute in a very effective way to the salvation of the remnants of European Jewry." In the pivotal years between, he was also kind of pro-Stalin as well, no, but that's, that's not quite accurate. He was, as far as I know, a baby in Hungary whose family passed to another family to be hidden away. I don't think he was in a death camp. I thought he was in a concentration camp. I might be wrong. Sorry about that. For Gabor Mate. In the pivotal years before the end of the war and his death in 1955, Einstein was outspoken about the Jewish State Project. Invited to testify before the Anglo-American Committee of Inquiry on Palestine in Washington, D.C. in January 1946, Einstein answered unequivocally when asked about the possible state of Israel versus a cultural homeland. "I have never been in favor of a state." In March 1947, I.Z. David, a member of the Irgun terrorist group led by Menachem Begin, sent him a questionnaire to which he responded sharply and clearly. Question: what is your opinion about the establishment of a free national Jewish Palestine? Einstein: Jewish national home? Yes. Jewish national Palestine? No. I favor a free binational Palestine at a later date after agreement with the Arabs. Question: opinion about the partition of Palestine and Chaim Weizmann's proposals regarding a partition. Einstein: I am against partition. On the question of the alliance between British and American imperialism, Einstein harbored no illusions. It seems to me that our beloved Americans are now patterning their foreign policy on the model of the Germans, since they appear to have inherited the latter's inflatedness and arrogance. Apparently, they also want to take on the role England has played up till now. They refuse to learn from each other and learn little even from their own harsh experience. What has been implanted into the heads from early youths is rooted more firmly than experience and reasoning. The English are yet another good example of this. Their old-fashioned methods of suppressing the masses by using indigenous, unscrupulous elements of the economic upper class will soon cost them their whole empire. But they are incapable to bring themselves to change with their methods, no matter whether it's the Tories or the socialists. With the Germans, it was exactly the same. All of this would be good and well, except for the fact that it is so sad for the better elements and the oppressed. Again, a socialist back then, at the inception of the USSR, was a very different kind of socialist than what you would associate in the Western world with socialism. Okay? Back then, there was a very significant approach to socialism that revolved around anti-imperialism. That is gone now. Okay. And as a matter of fact, the overwhelming amount of friction that I have with even people who are self-identifying socialists in the Western world revolves around that concept, because socialism also means you are anti-empire. You are an anti-imperialist, or at least historically, that's what it meant. Nowadays, however, people just think socialism is modest social democracy in the Western world with no re-examination of the unequal exchange that we have with the third world. Okay? That's a very significant disagreement that a lot of people refuse to identify, refuse to, refuse to deal with the contradictions on. Modern leftists are anti-imperial. You are just counting social democrats as leftists? Nah. Okay, if modern leftists are anti-imperialist, then there's like 11 of us, okay? As for the political ancestors of the current Netanyahu government, Einstein tore into them and their political parties, particularly in the New York Times. When Menachem Begin came to New York in late 1948, Einstein, Hannah Arendt, and other Jewish intellectual figures in the United States published a letter denouncing his visit and the organization he led, calling it a political party very close in its organization, methods, and political philosophy and social appeal to the Nazi and fascist parties. One example they cited was the massacre of 240 men, women, and children in the Palestinian village of Deir Yassin. Okay? Oh, wow. Down to the fucking actual village that I identified. Einstein would repeat his accusation until his death in 1955. These people are Nazis in their thoughts and actions. Anyone who says today in the mainstream media is immediately labeled an anti-Semite and blacklisted. It is unbelievable that Yair Rosenberg went on The Atlantic, a magazine whose editor-in-chief is literally a former concentration camp prison guard from Israel, okay, and wrote that article. And his key point on the article, in the article was that I actually bastardized Einstein's nuanced perspective on Israel when he did that for selfish gain. It is common knowledge that when Chaim Weizmann died in 1952, the Prime Minister of Israel offered the presidency of Israel to Albert Einstein. Less well known, however, is the reason Einstein gave for his refusal. I would have to say to the Israeli people things they would not like to hear. Even less well known is Ben-Gurion's statement. Tell me what to do if he says yes. I've had to offer him the post because it was impossible not to. But if he accepts, we are in trouble. Hundreds, if not thousands of people are being accused of anti-Semitism or fired from their jobs because they dare to criticize the state of Israel, call it an apartheid state, and denounce the genocide of Palestinians. May they rest assured they are in good company, because if Einstein were alive today, he would be on the front lines demonstrating with them. Yeah, this is most of the quotes are from Einstein on Israel and Zionism by Fred Jerome. Okay? The problem with Yair Rosenberg's Einstein story by Hassan Piker. It's just it's so ridiculous, and you can create overwhelming amounts of noise, leaning into, ironically, the anti-intellectualist feelings, the anti-intellectualist attitude, which Yair Rosenberg blames me for, ironically enough, when he is doing that. Anyway, write as a response, bro. That would be legit. Yeah. Link this article to Yair's tweet and call him out for bastardizing Einstein's views and manipulating in public. It's ironic that I bastardized Einstein's views on Zionism and Israel for my purpose, for my ideological purpose in this article, when he quite literally did just that. Here are some choice quotes from Einstein on Israel and Zionism. You make up your own mind. Okay, Einstein, and you get the same treatment. Select quotes to bend what you're saying. That's quite flattering. No, that's not Einstein and me. That's just like, people will always have their own political goals, their own ideological goals, and in service of advancing those ideological goals, they will consistently bastardize their opposition's framework. They will consistently bastardize their opposition's message. Okay? It's not surprising to me at all. It's something that I expect. It shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone. It is what it is, okay? Oh, I said ronic instead of ironic. Boom. All right, I fixed it. I fixed the typo. I fixed it. But once again, we must always seek truth from facts, and we must always say the truth. Okay? Remember that, because at the end of the day, the historical record will always show where you stood on these issues, and that all of the overwhelming amounts of silliness, bastardizations of your framework, bastardizations of your thought, all of that will be cleared when the dust is settled. Okay? Just as for years and years, up until the last couple of years, people would hear my perspective on Israel and would say, how dare you say such horrible things? You must be a Jew hater. And now people are much more understanding of where I'm coming from, right? History has vindicated us and our position. If I were to have stood idly by and worried about the way that people will perceive what I'm saying, then I would not have been able to convince. I would not have been able to convince people at all. If others also did not have the bravery to say the truth at a time when lies were a much more favorable position to take, advancing lies would have, preserved your career and things like that. If many others refuse to be, say the truth for the last couple of years, we would not have seen a sea change. Right? Anyway, that's why I don't really care when all of these, when people are like, oh, his perspective is one that we, his perspective is one that we don't approve of, or, oh, Hassan has very favorable views, Democrats should stay away from him. Okay, I don't give a shit. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. You know what I mean? I'm going to keep saying the truth. You don't have to agree with it, but it's still the truth, and you can't change that. On that note, let's move to Iran, situation monitoring, and where the ceasefire talks are right now.
Be a pivotal moment in the war with Iran. The 2-week ceasefire between the U.S. and Iran was expected to expire tonight, but it appears President Trump may have pushed back the deadline to.
Vance trip put on hold. Uh-oh. What happened? Everyone was saying is a definite.
So this comes as Vice President J.D. Vance is expected in Pakistan for another round of peace talks. So here's a question. Will they happen? Nancy Cordes is at the White House. Nancy, good morning to you. So many conflicting messages and the stakes are so high. What can you tell us?
Yeah, good morning, Gail. Everything feels a little up in the air this morning with both sides talking tough right now with this ceasefire about to end. President Trump is saying if there's no deal, quote, lots of bombs start going off. And the Iranians are saying they want the U.S. to release a ship it seized over the weekend, with a senior commander saying just this morning that there will be an immediate and decisive response to any aggression from the U.S.
It's very close to being over.
In an evening radio interview, President Trump claimed the Iranians are coming to the table.
And if they don't, they're going to see problems like they've never seen before.
But earlier, Iran's parliamentary speaker said, we do not accept negotiations under the shadow of threats. We have prepared to reveal new cards on the battlefield.
We have not reached an agreement.
Vice President J.D. Vance, who led the first round of talks in Pakistan, is poised to head there again for round two. But even that caused confusion Monday, with President Trump telling one news outlet that Vance was heading over now, then telling another that Vance would leave later in the day. But this morning, Vance still woke up in Washington.
No plan, no strategy, no clear objectives.
All of it providing more fodder for Democrats.
A big part of the problem right now, particularly as it relates to skyrocketing gas prices, is Donald Trump's reckless and costly war of choice.
On Monday, Trump rejected his energy secretary's estimate that
God, thank God I just got back as my sexy goat, my sexy king, the sexual panther, the lion himself. Hakeem Jeffries was on screen. Thank God. Vance has paused the trip to Pakistan for Iran talks. Source said as Trump discussed with his aides the possibility of canceling the trip altogether, Vance could still go to Islamabad even this evening, but for right now, travel isn't happening. Tasnim is reporting Iran is not going to Pakistan. No prospect of negotiations at this moment. Iranian official tells Jeremy Scahill that as of this moment, 3:38 p.m. Eastern Time, Iran won't attend a new round of talks. Officials say Pakistan told Iran and Trump will lift the naval blockade in the final hours of the ceasefire. Officials say Pakistan told Iran that Trump will lift the naval blockade in the final hours of the ceasefire. If that happens and ceasefire is extended, new talks could happen Thursday. Okay, it's a real, I would say, initially I would have said this is a Mexican standoff. But I guess now it's a Pakistani standoff, okay? That's what it is. That's what it is. Because Iran has made their demands very clear. Lift the American naval blockade. If you don't do this, no talks. America, on the other hand, wants to max out on the victory, okay? They want to max out on how victorious they've been so far, how they've dominated Iran, except the reality, Pakistan standoff was right there. Fuck. God damn it. You're right. It's a Pakistan standoff. Pakistan Zindabad. God damn it. You're right. Son of a bitch. Okay. We just reversed it. We just reversed it. That's what now I want you to imagine I said it's a real Pakistan standoff. Okay. Sounds too much like you're just saying the P word followed by standoff. Okay, calm down. Is Pakistan culture inherently parasocial? I don't know, but I have a parasocial relationship with the nation state of Pakistan. Okay. Wow, grape. Yeah, Pakistan is at the table. Pakistan is the table. Islamabad is now Islamagud. I love Pakistan. I will sacrifice my life for Pakistan. Just play the video? No. I live for the video. Okay. Iran will not be showing up for the talks. Iran's decision not to attend the meeting in Pakistan on Wednesday is final, according to Tasnim News Agency, the IRGC-affiliated media. Now, like I said, a real Pakistan standoff. Iran ceasefire ends in 3 hours, but Trump says it expires tomorrow. Ceasefire will be over in around 3 hours and 30 minutes, according to Iran. UAE is on their deathbed asking for a currency line. They can't sustain any more missiles. Okay.
These are the students who are the future of Pakistan, and they are representing in the world Pakistan. I love Pakistan. I will sacrifice my life for Pakistan. I love Pakistan.
What the fuck is this? Lol, Trump only knows what time it is in Miami and DC. Yeah. Listen, as much as it hurts me as a Turk to see Turkey fall from grace and no longer be the table or at the table, my life for Pakistan. Okay, Pakistan is the table. Islamabad is now officially the table.
Gas prices likely won't drop below $3 a gallon until next year. I think he's wrong on that, Trump said. Totally wrong.
You're going to see prices drop. You're going to see energy come down like you've never seen it before. All these things are going to happen.
But most economists actually agree with the energy secretary. In fact, the government's own estimates project that gas is not going to go back below $3 a gallon until at least 2027, Gail.
Everybody's feeling it when you go to gas up your car. Nancy, before you go, news broke yesterday about a shakeup in the president's cabinet. What can you tell us about that? What happened?
That's right. Labor Secretary Lori Chavez-DeRemer is leaving now. She's the third member of the president's cabinet to depart in less than 2 months. She's a former Oregon congresswoman, but she had been under scrutiny for possible abuse of her position. And her husband was also banned from Labor Department headquarters after 2 women who worked there alleged that he touched them inappropriately. On Monday, however, the president offered praise for Chavez-DeRemer and said she's just leaving for a job in the private sector, Gail.
All right, Nancy, thank you very much.
Vice President J.D. Vance is reportedly set to head to Pakistan today for a new round of peace talks with Iran.
Right. I say Pakistan, you say Pakistan. Yeah.
Lawrence dated a girl from there, and she said you have to say Pakistan.
Right. Pakistan.
But
Oh my God. Wow, how cultured. Marcus just dropped on this headline. Vance called off trip to Pakistan. Sorry. Oh, Jesus Christ, dude. I can't stop. I can't. I'm sorry. Bro, you're live streaming? Whatever, dude. It's what matters anymore? You know, nothing. Nothing matters. A year ago, you mocked me for saying Pakistan was going to be the table, and now look at you. Okay, it's true. I was wrong. I was wrong. As a Turk, my background forced me not to see the reality that was unfolding in front of our eyes, okay? That Pakistan was going to be the table. I, for the longest time, believed that Turkey was the table, okay? That Turkey was at the table and Turkey was the table. I was wrong. Turkey is no longer at the table. Pakistan is now the table!
Kind of mixed it. I did Pakistan.
Yep, a little bit later we'll find out and maybe get that girl on the phone. We'll find out what's going on with you two. But President Trump is now accusing Iran of violating the ceasefire, which expires tomorrow.
Chief Foreign Correspondent Trey Yinks joins us live from Israel with the latest. Hey, Trey.
Yeah, hey, guys. Good morning. The ceasefire between the United...
Oh, here we go. We got Trey on, signing live from Tel Aviv to glaze Donald Trump. Trey's going to tell us how wonderful Trump has destroyed the Iranian missile stockpiles. Everything's going great. People love it. People are celebrating it, really. It's fantastic.
States
here we go. Tel Aviv Trey, baby. Tel Aviv Trey. Give it to us, Trey.
And this week, the U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance and the American delegation are expected to travel to Pakistan today, going to Islamabad. State media in Iran, though, says the Iranian delegation has not yet departed for the talks. Iran Parliament Speaker posted to X overnight saying Trump, by imposing a siege and violating the ceasefire, seeks to turn this negotiating table in his own imagination into a table of surrender or to justify renewed warmongering. We do not accept negotiations under the shadow of threats, and in the past 2 weeks we have prepared to reveal new cards on the battlefield. The reality is that Iran has violated the ceasefire multiple times, specifically in the Strait of Hormuz, where only 16 vessels passed through on Monday. President Trump has indicated he's unlikely to extend the ceasefire, saying this overnight.
Frankly, everyone is. They don't talk about it. But you can't let Iran have a nuclear weapon. You want to see a stock market get hit. You cannot let Iran have a nuclear weapon. And they'll use it here. They'll take out the Middle East. They'll knock out Israel in the Middle East. And they'll come to Europe and they'll come here because they are, let's say, ill, very ill, and we can't let that happen.
The president also posted a number of times to Truth Social saying, in part, Israel never talked me into the war with Iran. The results of October 7th added to my lifelong opinion that Iran can never have a nuclear weapon. The Israelis agree with that position and have indicated they are prepared if the war resumes. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu saying this at a Memorial Day ceremony late Monday.
Our flag is planted from the depths of the Gaza Strip to the crown of Mount Hermon, and our pilots control the skies of the region as definitive proof of our superiority over the Iranian axis. We have not yet finished the work, but the world is already recognizing our determination to defend ourselves, and not only ourselves, but to defend humanity from barbaric fanaticism.
President Trump posting to Truth Social that Iran has violated the ceasefire numerous times. This is true not just in the Strait of Hormuz, but remember, in the early hours of this agreement, they were still launching ballistic missiles at Israel and Gulf countries. Guys?
Hey, Trey, could you give me an idea? Are we letting ships through? Because we're seeing different reports. First, nobody's getting through. Then we boarded a ship that tried to get through. Do you have any reporting that talks about what's really happening in the Strait?
Yeah, the United States is allowing any vessels who are passing through this area to make their way to their final destination as long as they're not coming from Iranian ports. There were some reports overnight indicating that 26 vessels from Iran's shadow fleet were able to make it past the U.S. blockade. There is no evidence of that, and despite what one Democratic senator talked about, there is a concerted effort by the United States to ensure that any vessels that are coming from Iranian ports are turned around or seized, as we saw with that one cargo ship over the weekend.
So, Trey, that was just Iranian propaganda, right?
Yes, absolutely. And the shadow fleet that the senator is talking about is used to directly fund Iranian proxies across the Middle East, including Hamas, the Houthis, and Hezbollah, who are directly responsible for killing U.S. citizens. And so the shadow fleet is a very serious problem. it is not getting past the U.S. blockade, according to all reports and information that we have from the region. But it is a very serious issue that the U.S. Navy says they will crack down on, not just in the Persian Gulf, but also around the world, including in the Indo-Pacific.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks so
See,
much.
that's what I'm talking about. Rooting against the country.
Who is it?
What's the
Senator
name of the
Chris
senator?
Murphy?
Chris Murphy, the one Margaritaville with the illegal alien that was in that came to this country that
was
got
Van
deported. Yeah. No. So it's like, why are you going against the country right now in the middle of a war?
Dude, you can't do this. This is 2003, okay? This is 2003 rhetoric in 2026. It doesn't fucking work, okay? Because we don't have 2003 economy. We don't have the 2003 economy. We don't have the almost religious fervor in the post 9/11 anger and resentment that demanded blood, demanded revenge. We don't have any of those things. As a matter of fact, we're living in the aftermath of all of that. We're living 20 years after that. We know what it looked like when we engaged in action, when we reacted to 9/11, and most people do not have a positive view over the global war on terror in the United States of America. So to try to whip up this, like, you got to support the troops, when the overwhelming majority of Americans are like, why the fuck are we putting troops in the line of fire? This is so stupid. Like, and it's only leading to my gas prices going up. You can't do this whole like, oh, if you disagree with the war effort, you must disagree with every single troop. You're spitting on the face of the troops. Like, it doesn't work that way. Okay? Are you really playing the Epstein game, Hasanabi? What is the Epstein game? Is Pragmata the Epstein game? Are you calling it the Epstein game? Are you all right? What the fuck? Not even 2003 stockpiles? Oh, hell no. Don't even do that to me. The first round of the U.S.-Iran war drained significant numbers of exquisite munitions on top of those already spent last year defending Israel from ballistic missile attacks. Another round would presumably drain them down to a point where conventional deterrence is nullified for years. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. I mean, what do you say? What do you say to this? All right, fuck it. You know, have fun, I guess. What can I say? According to CSIS numbers, over the last 7 weeks of war, the U.S. military has expended most of its stockpile of precision strike missiles, at least half of its inventory of THAAD missiles, and around half of the SM-3 Patriot interceptor stockpile. Oh, my Lord, dude. Oh, my fucking Lord. This is what I've been saying. And the IRGC says missiles are ready for launch. The U.S. military has significantly depleted its stockpile of key missiles during the war with Iran and created a near-term risk of running out of ammunition in a future conflict should one arise in the next few years, according to experts and 3 people familiar with recent internal Defense Department stockpile assessments. Now, listen, they're talking about should a war arise in the near future. They're not, which means like if a war starts or restarts right now, it's fucked. Okay, it's unbelievably fucked.
CNN has.
And by the way, it is fucked. Just so you understand, it's totally fucked. Hey, guess what? By the way, remember, if you criticize this, you're anti-Semitic. Because you have to remind yourself, what is all of this for? And then you have to think, oh, it's for Benjamin Netanyahu, who I love and admire and is the best guy. He's the best guy. He's the guy in my heart. Okay, he leads the only democracy in the world, not just in the region, in the world, honestly, the only honest democracy. No one has ever had an honest democracy. Em Israel Chai. Wonderful that we're doing all this, okay? It is what it is. You just gotta live with that. You gotta live with that. When you're paying extra at the pump, just remind yourself that, like, if you have any negative associations with the nation state of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, and the like, remind yourself that you are being deeply anti-Semitic and just like slap yourself in the face a couple times so you forget those bad thoughts. Okay, no bad thoughts, no bad thoughts, only good thoughts. Okay, Israel is now a superpower. That's what Benjamin Netanyahu is saying. So, you know. If you're wondering, like, what was all of this for? Well, remember, it's so that Israel gets to achieve its strategic objectives of developing the Greater Israel Project. And that's a good thing. And if you think that's insane, well, then you're bad. You're bad. And the media will yell at you every fucking day. The media will take all of your choice quotes and fucking constantly talk about how dangerous you are, how dangerous of an anti-Semite you are. Okay? That's the reality that we're living in. Once again, thank you, Closed Presence, for the 100 gifted subs. Haven't seen Closed Presence in a minute in this chat. Haven't seen Open Presence at all. I feel like my Qatari Oilers have been gone since this conflict arose. Many of us are suffering. My Oilers are suffering. Open Prez is not coming back, methinks. Wait, why? He's gone. Closed killed Open and is now wearing their skin. I have no idea what these people's background is. Like, I have no idea at all. So I don't know if they were actually from Qatar or not. That was a joke. I don't think they're actually from the nation state of Qatar, the crown jewel of the Gulf, the pearl of the Gulf. So, you know every chatter? Yes. Okay. City, we are dying. City, kek spin. Qatari cat still in the building. They were Turkish. Not the same situation, but I do worry about time without an OO. Yeah, I wonder where time without an OWO went. Ooh. What happened to Sakura Agor, another Oiler lost? They were Turkish and they are not happy with you saying Pakistan is the table. Okay, dude. Closed was Qatari. Open is Iranian. Welcome to Trump's new world. Yeah. So what exactly do you support? I support peace and prosperity. I support globo homo. Okay. Luxury gay space communism for all. The Piker Broadcasting Service is sponsored by you, the people, for you, the people. Yes, I support globo homo shepherded by Jewish Bolshevism, International Communist Consortium. We support gay sex. Yeah, free sex, gay sex. Sometimes I feel like your analysis lacks nuance and complexity, which is a large reason why I unsubbed, says 420 Cat Lover EDM. True. Facts. You see the J Street interview on PodSave? No, I haven't. Men would be happier if they were fucking other men. And my analysis lacks the necessary nuance. My analysis on men having sex with other men lacks the necessary nuance, which ironically is this chatter's demand is that I take a black and white stance on men having sex in the affirmative with other men. My rotisserie chicken woke up. Hello. Hello. What are you looking at? What are you looking at? Bro, stop speaking on things you know nothing about. Oh, men loving men. You've never felt the warm embrace of a welcoming hole. Okay, I have. Your mom's. All right, let's continue with the fucking missiles. Let's get back to serious stuff. What am I doing? What the fuck is wrong with me? I'm sorry. I apologize to everyone. I need to get back to actually covering the news. All right, so we're talking about the American missile stockpile and the critical levels of depletion that we're at. Okay. Over the last 7 weeks of war, the U.S. military has expended at least 45% of its stockpile of precision strike missiles, at least half of its inventory of THAAD missiles, which are designed to intercept ballistic missiles, and nearly 50% of its stockpile of Patriot air defense interceptor missiles. Whew. According to a new analysis conducted by the Center for Strategic and International Studies, CSIS, those numbers closely align with the classified Pentagon data about U.S. stockpiles, according to the source familiar with the assessment. Earlier this year, the Pentagon signed a series of contracts that would help expand missile production, but the delivery timeline to replace these systems is 3 to 5 years, even with the increased capacity, the CSIS experts and the sources said. In the short term, the U.S. likely maintains enough bombs and missiles to continue combat operations against Iran in any scenario should the shaky ceasefire fail to hold. But the number of critical munitions remain in the U.S. stockpiles is no longer sufficient to confront a near-peer adversary like China, and it will likely take years before the inventory of those weapons return to pre-war levels, CSIS analysis concludes. The high munitions expenditures have created a window of increased vulnerability in the Western Pacific, Mark Kincaid, Kankian, a retired U.S. Marine Corps colonel and one of the authors of the CSIS report, told CNN it will take 1 to 4 years to replenish these inventories and several years after that to expand them to where they need to be. Let's watch the CNN report on the critical missile shortage.
Learned that the U.S. military has significantly depleted its stockpile of key missiles during the war with Iran. And according to experts, this reduction is so severe it has created a near-term risk of the U.S. running out of ammunition should a future conflict arise in the next.
You know who also said this exact same thing was going to happen if we go to war with Iran? Motherfucking Raisin Kane, dude. Trump's beautiful general from Central Casting. He did. He said this. He said this exact same thing so many times that seemingly fell on deaf ears in the rooms that, you know, Trump was in, that he went to the media and also leaked it. He did. General Dan Raisin Kane, he said it.
Few years. CNN's Natasha Bertrand is
He
with
was
us
being
now.
quite
Her
anti-Semitic
reporting on this. It's some new reporting here. Natasha, walk us through what you've learned.
Yeah, Brianna, so according to this new study by the Center for Strategic and International Studies, which was, their findings were confirmed by 3 sources familiar with recent Pentagon assessments of U.S. stockpiles, the U.S. is running dangerously low on some of these key munitions that would be required to confront a near-peer adversary in the short term, like China, for example. So while the U.S. does still have sufficient munitions to continue bombing Iran, for example, if this shaky ceasefire were to fall apart, if they were to need to confront an adversary like China or like Russia, for example, then that could pose significant problems for the United States. Now, just to give you an example of how much the U.S. stockpile has been depleted over the last 7+ weeks of war on Iran, according to this assessment and the sources that we spoke to, the U.S. military has expended at least 45% of its stockpile of precision strike missiles, at least half of its inventory of THAAD missiles, which are designed to intercept ballistic missiles, and nearly 50% of its stockpile of Patriot air defense interceptor missiles, which are, of course, very key air defense munitions. Now, the U.S. military has also expended approximately 30% of its Tomahawk missiles stockpile, which are those long-range munitions that are really key to attacking targets further away. More than 20% of its stockpile of long-range joint air-to-surface standoff missiles, and approximately 20% of its SM-3 and SM-6 missiles. Now, this is important because these munitions take a while to be replaced. And according to our sources and this analysis, it would take anywhere between 1 to 6 years to replace a lot of these munitions. And so this is a really big problem that we should note that the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General Dan Kane, he actually warned about as the administration was preparing to potentially go to war with Iran. He was raising concerns, we're told, about this issue of depleted stockpiles around the world, particularly ones that could be very useful to U.S. allies like Israel and Ukraine. So the Pentagon is preparing to ask for a supplemental from Congress.
Always funny how the near-peer assessment of China never mentions mobilization tempo. Like they can't even move at a pace that the U.S. could ever match at the event of a prolonged conflict. Yeah, near-peer also doesn't make the calculation that China could just like shut off the faucet of raw materials necessary for manufacturing these missile systems. So that assessment, weirdly enough, is never a part of the calculation, because that's the real that is the real problem here, is that if China just slaps on export controls on key materials necessary for missile production for American national security, which they have entertained in the past, it's fucking over. It's literally over. It's never been more over than it is right now. There is no way for America to design a contingency plan around that procurement strategy, because China has almost a complete monopoly on the manufacturing, or sorry, the procurement and the refinement of rare earth minerals, magnets and the like, that are necessary for missile production. Now, of course, China won't do that. They love trade. They will fucking die if they don't do trade. But here, I'll tell it to you like this. I'll give you a burger analogy. Imagine a world where all the cows are in China, okay? all the cows are being processed in China, and there are very few cows that exist elsewhere other than the markets that China has, complete control over. Okay. Now, Americans have this unbelievable appetite for burgers, and they're consuming so many burgers. Okay. They're eating burgers like crazy, like there's no tomorrow. All of a sudden, China says, hey, we're no longer giving you, we love the burgers. We're consuming the burgers ourselves. We're no longer going to give you the cows to make the burgers. No more burger for America. Okay. I didn't want to scare you guys, but that's kind of the reality that we're facing currently. Okay. Yeah. Imagine a hamburger. Thank God I finally get it now. Yeah.
For additional funding to try to replace these munitions, but it could still take quite some time before those are actually back in U.S. stockpiles, Brianna.
All right. Thank you, Natasha, for the reporting. Boris?
Joining us now to discuss this and more regarding the war with Iran is retired Army Major Harrison Mann. He's a former Defense Intelligence Agency official, also the Associate Campaigns Director for Win Without War. Major, thanks so much for being with us. When you hear that report, how much do these shortages concern you?
They concern me, and for more reasons just than running out of ammo fighting Iran. Part of this is a math problem that we knew the answer for before this war started, right? We knew what our stockpiles were, and I used to work with the folks at the Defense Intelligence Agency who used to do their best to count how many missiles and drones Iran had. And so, there's really two things that I want to draw out of here. One is that the folks, politicians and experts who were advocating for war with Iran, they were just kind of detached from reality. We've run out of up to 50% of strategic defensive interceptors a month into a war with a regional power, right? This is Iran. And from that, we also got to kind of extrapolate folks who are advocating for war with China. That is a global power. The fact that we are totally unprepared for these conflicts is not an argument for us to gear up for war, but it should make us a little more introspective when we have people saying it's going to be a slam dunk and we really need to fight these wars. The other thing I want to pull out of this, I think, you could be watching this report about us running out of all these critical munitions and say, well, wait a minute, don't we have the most powerful military in the world?
Trump on Truth Social, based on the fact that the government of Iran is seriously fractured, not unexpectedly so, and upon the request of Field Marshal Asim Munir, the Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif of Pakistan, Zindabad, we have been asked to hold our attack on the country of Iran until such time as their leaders and representatives can come up with a unified proposal. I have therefore directed our military to continue the blockade and, in all other respects, remain ready and able, and will therefore extend the ceasefire until such time as their proposal is submitted and discussions are concluded one way or another. What happened? Dude, every time Donald Trump pulls away from military action, he presents it in a way where he's like, it's because they're so weak. It would be bad. It would look bad if we just hit our enemy in their weakest moment. Okay. It's so funny. Another Tuesday, another Taco Tuesday. Okay. Now, of course, the problem here is still the continued blockade. He'd rather explode than be seen as weak. It's pathological. Yeah, I think this is turning into Trita Parsi's assessment a little bit. I still think there's perfidy at play here. Mike Huckabee has been recalled to the United States. That's interesting, at least. And also, you have a lot of troop activity leading up to this moment. So who knows what he does? Wait, please explain. So China wants to produce material for bombs that could potentially be directed towards China, huh? Please explain. Oh my God. We taught the average person how international trade works, and they wanted to, their mind exploded instantaneously. Brother or sister or the emperor, that is what's going on right now. That's why it's really funny when America's like, we hate China. We have to go to war with China. It's like every single missile component touches Chinese hands at a certain point, okay? This is just how it works. This is how international trade works. China is a unbelievably important, if not the most important part of the supply chain. So yes, on the one hand, you hear Americans endlessly talk about how China is a real threat, a real danger to America. On the other hand, China has for years and years been a manufacturing base that creates the materials that are necessary for missile production. China is the manufacturing base of the entire planet. And yes, vice versa, China uses USA chips in their weapons too. Like there is this very strange design that we have over international trade that does not correspond to the way that we talk about China. Now, of course, China doesn't talk about us in the same way that we talk about China. Let's be real. If we're being totally honest here, they don't talk about us like the way we talk about them. But we have this very belligerent attitude. China recognizes the interdependency that they have with us. We, if we're being honest, recognize it as well, but we talk like we don't recognize it. But then again, that inconsistency is perhaps best demonstrated by the way that Trump moves on the timeline. On the one hand, sober minds recognize that Iran still maintains all the leverage by controlling the Strait of Hormuz. Donald Trump needs to open the Strait of Hormuz. And instead, he has decided to add a second blockade to the Strait of Hormuz, making it seem as though America has the upper hand in these conversations. Behind closed doors, they're begging the Iranians to get to the ceasefire table and negotiate with the Americans. But in public, they're doing this. They're doing a whole lot of this.
World, don't we have the biggest military in the world? We just spent nearly $1 trillion on the Pentagon last year. Why don't we have enough ammo? And I think it's important for folks to understand, especially as we move into talking about supplemental funding or a new defense funding bill, that these hundreds of billions of dollars that Congress gives the president for war largely do not go into things that we would say we need for war. The reason that we don't have enough air defense interceptors is because instead we've been spending that money on like these big projects that are kind of designed to be expensive. Like I hate to describe it this way, but a lot of this $900 billion budget, and that's what Congress passed last year, nearly every Republican and over 50% of Democrats too, kind of becomes a slush fund for defense contractors. Raytheon, Lockheed, and instead of producing the defensive capabilities that you say we might need, instead of doing things like paying to get black mold out of the soldiers' barracks, instead of going towards getting better bomb shelters for the hundreds of U.S. troops who've been wounded in this war, we're building big vanity projects like the F-35 stealth fighter, which we learned pretty early on in this war is not that stealthy. Iran caught it on camera and shot at it, or like Ford-class aircraft carriers that the toilets don't work on. And so I think it's really important to understand if you see these numbers and are shocked or worried by them, more money is not the answer. More judicious spending is.
There's also an aspect to this, specifically when it comes to Iran, and I'll get to China in a moment, but financially it's asymmetrical, right? I've heard some experts describing the U.S. weaponry as a Ferrari out in the skies over Tehran, and the Iranians essentially shooting like a razor scooter at a Ferrari. It's way less expensive for them to take out the U.S. and Israel's equipment than the inverse. How does the U.S. make that more efficient? Does it need to adjust toward a more Ukrainian-like model?
So this is another reflection of our misguided priorities, I would say. Drone proliferation in the Middle East has been a threat for at least a decade. We saw them popping up in the Syrian civil war, and Iran has been a leader in this field. As you mentioned, Ukrainians, out of necessity, figured out much, much cheaper ways to deal with this threat. Why haven't we invested in them? Again, these are because of decisions that Congress and successive military leadership made.
U.S., and I mean this, will never be able to engage in the same efficient procurement strategies of the Ukrainian or the Iranian drone manufacturing industry. And there's one reason for that, and especially for Iran, but even this is also the case with Ukraine as well, to a lesser degree. The reason is because of why our defense industry exists. Okay? The Iranian defense industry exists out of necessity. It is for survival. It is for sovereignty. Okay? It's not because America doesn't have the industrial base to do this. Of course we do. I mean, look at China. The reason why is because our military industrial complex does not exist for national security. It exists for profit. The Ukrainian drone industry was built out of necessity. Now, it's still very westernized, and therefore there is an element of profit seeking in that one as well, but it's still ultimately built out of necessity. Okay? And it is especially the case for Iran. Iran's defense sector is not designed for profit. It is designed for survival. That's it. That's it. It's that simple. And that's precisely the reason why we take the Iranian Shahed drones that are made for like, I believe, $7,000 to $10,000 a pop, the cheapest versions of the Shahed drones, which is basically like a lawnmower with explosive ordnance attached to it, right? Very cheap and very reliable. And our version of that, which is the Lucas, is like $30,000 a piece. So even when we just take the Iranian invention and basically slap made in the USA, a made in the USA sticker on it, it's still infinitely more costly. Sometimes, twice, sometimes 4 times, 5 times the price. And the reason for that is because American manufacturing is not designed around survivability, is not designed around necessity. It's designed around contractor bloat. It's designed around endless profit seeking. It's that simple. And that's why, in a situation where you're going toe-to-toe with a country that is capable of waging asymmetric war, and a country that is willing to absorb a lot of the costs because it's had to absorb a lot of the cost due to the sanctions regime that we implemented for many, many years, they have a lot more leverage. It's a lot cheaper for them to maintain control over this key choke point for trade, for international trade, and they can just withstand us in a game of attrition. The U.S. defense industry is like the last pillar of our domestic industrial investment, and it's used as a way to pour money into the economy via bloat. And for greed, of course, it is incredibly inefficient, and we get so much less per dollar than many other countries do. Yes. But it's also important to understand that when I say defense bloat, or when we talk about like why we spend so much money, that is a much more favorable attitude about what the defense industry exists for. It's true that this is the last line of like good, in air quotes, good jobs, reliable jobs, aside from like fracking, right? However, even in that field, much of the money, much of the unlimited expenditures still goes back to financial engineering in the same exact way that all of these companies are no longer companies that manufacture goods and try to make the most reliable good you possibly could have, but instead, all these companies have turned into banks. This is the same for Lockheed Martin. It's the same for Boeing. It's the same for Northrop Grumman. These companies are all banks now, okay? That is the problem. Capitalism has made the United States of America and its imperial war machine, which is a necessity for capitalism to continue, into a much weaker, much more overextended behemoth. In some ways, this is a contradiction working itself out. Hasanabi, look at Trump's latest truth. Yeah, I did. Anyway, not very good ones. I keep asking my local branch for loans and they just tackle me when I walk in. So yeah, I still think this might be perfidy. Jeremy Scale also seems to agree. Given that the U.S. twice attacked Iran while claiming to be negotiating, we can never rule out that the U.S. and Israel resume the war against Iran, even if talks are scheduled. This is what happened in June 2025 and February 2026. So while the talks are seemingly
CNN
off, that doesn't necessarily mean they're truly off. Anyway, let's get back to the American stockpiles.
War is not that stealthy. Iran caught it on camera and shot at it, or like Ford-class aircraft carriers that the toilets don't work on. And so I think it's really important to understand, if you see these numbers and are shocked or worried by them, more money is not the answer. More judicious spending is.
There's also an aspect to this, specifically when it comes to Iran, and I'll get to China in a moment, but financially it's asymmetrical, right? I've heard some experts describing the U.S. weaponry as a Ferrari out in the skies over Tehran, and the Iranians essentially...
Yes, this is true. Remember, my brother has said the Bayraktar is like the old reliable. The Bayraktar is like a Toyota Camry, whereas the American drone systems are like a Bentley or a Ferrari.
Actually shooting like a Razor scooter at a Ferrari. It's way less expensive for them to take out the U.S. and Israel's equipment than the inverse. How does the U.S. make that more efficient? Does it need to adjust toward a more Ukrainian-like model?
So this is another reflection of our misguided priorities, I would say. Drone proliferation in the Middle East has been a threat for at least a decade. We saw them popping up in the Syrian civil war, and Iran has been a leader in this field. As you mentioned, Ukrainians, out of necessity, figured out much cheaper ways to deal with this threat. Why haven't we invested in them? Again, these are because of decisions that Congress and successive military leadership made. And it's really unfortunate, because how did the first U.S. troops die in this conflict? It was a drone strike.
Yeah. I did want to get your thoughts on China, because this morning President Trump said the U.S. intercepted a ship that had, quote, a gift from China. This is notable because as the president is saying that he was sort of surprised.
Trump speculates is crazy. Brother, that's the president. What do you mean? I like that the president is so unreliable that when he makes a statement, and this is a pretty significant statement, he's basically, Trump is basically saying China was sending weapons to Iran and we intercepted it, right? But because he is so unreliable as a narrator, that even American news has to be like, it's speculation.
By this, we talked about last week the letters exchanged between he and President Xi of China, in which Xi effectively promised Trump that that China would not be supplying ammunition to Tehran. Do you think a shipment of arms from China could have gotten sent to Iran without Xi knowing, without Beijing being aware of what was being transported to Iran?
I don't think that would be possible, but we also have to note that the accusation here is a dual-use system.
I see.
So that could be electronics. It doesn't necessarily mean they sent them missiles. A lot of Iran's missiles and drones do depend on electronics, circuit board stuff that they can't manufacture domestically. So this could have been something routine, or it could have been China testing the waters and trying to keep the Iranian war effort going. It's hard to be sure right now.
Major Harrison, man, thank you so much for the perspective. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Yeah, dual use is, oh shit, Chris Hedges is with my goat, John Mersheimer, again. By the way, before people say, Hassan, why is John Mersheimer not on the broadcast? We're reaching. We're trying to get to John Mersheimer. We haven't been able to get to him. He has not responded. However, I have had, we are confirmed for Jeffrey Sachs. And when I do talk to Jeffrey Sachs, I'll be like, yo, can you put in a good word? Jeffrey Sachs will be on the broadcast tomorrow. I don't know why I haven't asked Chris Hedges actually to put in a good word with with Papa Mersh. But yeah. Jeffrey Sachs will be on the broadcast tomorrow. And then on Thursday, we still have a sequence of guests, wonderful guests, analysts, brilliant foreign policy analysts. This time on Thursday, of course, it will be Your Rage Gaming. So Jeffrey Sachs on Wednesday, tomorrow, and then Thursday it'll be Your Rage Gaming. We'll be doing Chad Weiss. Yeah. With Your Rage. And no, he will not be talking about, how to pry open the Strait of Hormuz. Just sent in my my mail-in ballot for Adam Hamawi. Now he's being smeared by his primary opponent for something he said on your stream. Yes, I know. When was the last time we had a streamer collab like this? Yeah, it's been a minute. You're talking about Jeffrey Sachs, right? We haven't had a streamer collab like Jeffrey Sachs in a minute. Very excited to ask Jeffrey Sachs's take on Pragmata. And I'm going to be doing Chad Vice with Jeffrey Sachs, and then I'm going to be doing foreign policy analysis with Your Rage Gaming. So, get excited for that. Let YRG take you to the hood? Potentially. Who up playing with their Heimer? This is why Mersheimer, Papa Merchheimer, doesn't want to come on the stream, okay? Because you guys say stuff like that. You joke, but that would unironically be fucking hysterical content. What? Asking Jeffrey Sachs to participate in Chad Vice and then asking Your Rage Gaming about like how like America's power projection capabilities diminishing around the globe and what that says about a future where America might not be the hegemon. Yeah, that's what I should do. You're right. Jeffrey Sachs takes me to the hood. Anyway, get them on for both. I should have Jeffrey Sachs and Your Rage Gaming at the same time. Anyway, Sachs discussing Hoscord relationships. Yeah. Jeffrey Sachs, what do you think about the polycule that I'm in Utah? This polycule that I'm in has caused me great distress. Extended, but talks canceled. I need to e-date and Hoscore for my Twitch sub. Jeffrey Sachs, help.
Well as international law. Iran says...
Oh, we'll do this after.
Well, and you heard Pete Hegseth. He said this at every single press conference. He says, when you read some of these headlines from a lot of the media, the legacy media, whose side are you on? Because I'm under the impression you're under the side of Iran and not America. You're rooting for Iran.
So Senator Chris Murphy everything he says is so against this president. It's really against the country. Every time Senator Schumer talks on the floor, talks about things that he thinks are going wrong with the war. He preferred the JCPOA, which he didn't vote for, and we have that soundbite. But Chris Murphy is probably the worst. Sees himself as a presidential candidate, but now cheering for Iranian propaganda, hoping it's true. And here it is. The original post. At least 26 Iranian shadow fleet vessels bypass U.S. blockade. Senator Chris Murphy retweets. Awesome.
Wow.
So that's the senator from Connecticut. Now, obviously, you shouldn't be rooting for this anyway, right? That's the first thing. But number two is it's clearly Iranian propaganda as well. So he's cheering for it, and then the information is still not even true. He gets briefed on this type of stuff. He could make a phone call to the White House or get briefed by the Pentagon about this information.
He's hoping it's true.
Apparently, China's president did make a call with the Saudi crown prince, and this is what he said to him. The Strait of Hormuz should remain open to normal passage as this serves the common interests of regional countries and the international community.
No joke. Hey, President Xi, snap out of it. It is Iran who you finance, support, and arm up and buy their oil, 90% of it, that has shut down the strait. Why are you calling Saudi Arabia saying open up the strait? Also, they're the ones who got to redirect all the oil around the strait.
Also, why would the Saudis reopen it after Iran has been attacking them?
Right, but they can't. They're not in control of it.
Why would they even try to help with this negotiation when China has been silent on Iran attacking the Gulf states when they didn't even do offensive measures?
The Gulf states should turn the screws on Iran and say, if you want to do business with us, stop on China. Stop doing business with Iran. These shouldn't be friendly calls. And China is the wild card here. If China says, I need oil from Iran, and now any Iranian ship cannot deliver oil, they're the ones who should turn around and say, Iran, open up the strait. That's the theory. And even though they have some oil in reserve, this is straining their economy.
Yeah, don't forget, this is just Iranian ports. This is not allowing their ships to allow them to transport oil to other countries. We're not allowing any of their ships or their vessels to go through the Strait of Hormuz if they came from one of their ports. It's open to everybody else.
Yep. Robert Levinson's son joined me earlier. Now, Robert Levinson, if you don't remember, is a CIA agent that was picked up on Kish Island 20 years ago. And they've been trying to find out what happened to him. And they've been going multiple times to Iran. And these people are evil personified. They take hostages, they torture the hostages, they ask for ransom back. People like President Biden actually give them money for people. But Levinson, there's so much mystery wrapped around it. So I asked him how he feels about this. And he also said what makes it doubly hard is Iran's ambassador to Pakistan is the one who kidnapped his father. And he's got a diplomatic position, prestigious in that world in Pakistan. And he's negotiating on this peace deal with us. Watch.
There's only a few people in the world who know exactly what happened to my dad, who were involved in what happened to my dad. The FBI identified 5 of them. One of them was killed in the initial airstrikes at the start of this conflict. And another one is hiding in plain sight. He's right out there. He was at these talks, helping coordinate things. And it's a slap in the face to our family, slap in the face to the United States of America, because I don't know what the heck he's doing over there. And that Pakistanis allowed this. It hurts their credibility as an independent intermediary between the two countries.
You're right, man. We shouldn't negotiate with foreign adversaries. Sorry, it makes you mad. Got it. Like, what do you mean? What is this? They don't understand sarcasm. You had to come out and say it was sarcasm. Oh yeah, I do. I do take a lot of pleasure in seeing even someone like Chris Murphy having to experience the same type of like cynical outrage manufacturing that I have to withstand with regular frequency, you know? Yeah, it's very funny. Chris Murphy was like very obviously being sarcastic, but you're not allowed to do sarcasm, clearly. To that I say,
legalize comedy.
yeah. Anyway, I don't care about what this guy's complaining about. Let's get to Donald Trump. Earlier this morning, delivering an incredible interview with CNBC, where he just says ridiculous shit.
Join us now on the Squawk Newsline.
And then afterwards, we will get to Goat Talk with Chris Hedges and John Goatsheimer.
That if the U.S. can...
Okay, get excited for that.
President Donald J. Trump. President Trump, welcome. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Well, thank you very much, Joe.
You are very welcome. Can you give us, I think it's on everyone's mind, the latest on where the Iran negotiations stand? We now know Tehran has publicly confirmed that it will send representatives to the meeting with Vice President Vance. What do you expect? What are you hearing at this point, sir?
Well, as I said 2 days ago when they said they won't send them, I said they'll be sending them. They have no choice but to send them. What I think is that we're going to end up with a great deal. I think they have no choice. We've taken out their Navy. We've taken out their Air Force. We've taken out their leaders, frankly, which does complicate things in one way, but these leaders are much more rational. It is regime change, no matter what you want to call it, which is not something I said I was going to do, but I've done it, indirectly maybe, but I've done it. And I think we're in a very strong negotiating position to do what other presidents should have done during a 47-year period. We have 47 years where these bloodthirsty people have been killing a lot of soldiers, a lot of our soldiers, and a lot of other people. They've killed 42,000 people over the last 2 months. And, you get to a point where people don't want to mention that. They don't like mentioning that. 42,000 unarmed protesters, innocent unarmed protesters, many of them hung. So we're not dealing with the nicest group of people, but we're dealing with them very successfully, and the blockade has been a tremendous success. They said 2 days ago, we will open the strait. I said, no, we're not going to open the strait until we have a final deal. No, we want to open the strait. They said, we're not opening. We totally control the strait, just so you understand, for all the fake news out there.
And, Mr. President, we've seen 100 days of the largest protests in Iran since the revolution in 1979. And I know how much you respect.
We live in a totally separate planet here in the United States of America. Like, no, 42,000 protesters with the biggest penises you've ever seen had not been hanged by the Iranian government, okay? That's what Donald Trump is claiming, okay? Don't get mad at me. He said they're all hung, okay? None of those things have happened. Okay, that's ridiculous. And even if that ridiculous claim were to be true, it's still additionally ridiculous to blow up the Iranian fucking the pipelines and the Iranian bridges that 93 million people still use, and the Iranian power plants that, again, 93 million people use. That's not a solution to this problem. Not only is it not true, but also, even if it was true, what the fuck is your solution? To wipe out the entire Iranian civilization? How is that somehow a solution to this problem?
And admire and are concerned with the Iranian people themselves. And this is, I think, in large degree, one of the reasons you decided to embark on this whole thing, maybe among other things, but the timing was right. If we get close in negotiations right now, but the deadline for the ceasefire is tomorrow.
Yes, I listened to the Daily today. It pissed me off to no end. Oh, my God. Oh, my fucking God. The New York Times Daily still doing the damn thing.
If it looks like things are...
Like, the Daily, basically, when it comes to foreign policy, is a way to manufacture consent for the most liberal audience to still feel reluctantly on board with whatever fucking military action we decide to do against whatever foreign adversary we've designed. Where that's their primary purpose, is to be like, listen, guys, I know you might not. I know that, our libtard audience might be feeling some type of way about our, bombing campaigns directed by the president, who has said he's going to do a genocide against the Iranian population. But here are two Iranians that are, not in Iran currently, and how they also think that American military action is totally justifiable here. It's unbelievable. I basically listen to it when I'm lifting to piss me off so I can get better gains in the mornings, okay? It's just, it's so frustrating to see exactly what they're doing. Like, exactly what they're doing. The whole purpose is for liberals who are anti-war to feel reluctantly on board with the actions that Trump is taking. That's all it is. See, here are two Iranians who agree. And obviously, in an effort to maintain some kind of credibility, they will mention that, like, there are other Iranians, including the first guy's wife who lives in Iran, who's like, shut the fuck up. Of course, bombs are not good, right? They'll show both sides of the story, but the two key fixtures in the commentary are two people that are not in Iran currently, that are excited to go back to Iran, who still tell you, blowing up Iran might not be the worst option here because we're so desperate for a regime change.
Are progressing. Will you not necessarily extend it to a definitive amount of time, but will you let it keep going if there's progress in the talks before taking...
Well, I don't want to do that. We don't have that much time because by the time both parties get there, as you know, they just got the okay to go forward, which I knew they were going to do anyway. I mean, I don't think they had a choice. They have to negotiate. And, the one thing I'll say is this: Iran can get themselves on a very good footing if they make a deal. They can make themselves into a strong nation again, a wonderful nation again. They have incredible people. But they seem to be, bloodthirsty. They're led by some very, very, unfortunately, tough people. And I don't mean tough in a good way. I think it's very negative for the country because we're much tougher than they are, like not even close. But they have to use reason, and they have to use common sense, and they can get themselves into a great position to make themselves into a great country, but a legitimate country, not a country based on death and horror.
I think regimes only respond to certain things, and I understand your threats to bomb the bridges in the electric grid.
You are wrong because my grandfather was half Iranian, and I agree, born and raised in California, by the way. Yeah, the only solution here is to evaporate every single Iranian living inside of Iran out of existence. That's the only way that we can enact regime change in Iran, which we have to do, okay? I need you to understand, lifelong Iranian here. Hello, buddy. I'm from Tehrangeles, okay? And I'm here to tell you this is what we got to do so I can get Cuba Day one day.
But I don't think the regime cares about the people of Iran. And if
okay, sure,
if you did that, I'm sure it's the last thing you'd probably want to do, but it would hurt at least some of the people that we care about and why we embarked on this in the first place. So that would be, I'm sure, a last resort for you.
It's not my choice, but it will also hurt them. It'll hurt them militarily. They use the bridges for their weapons, for their missile movements. You know, they're trying to move the missiles because we've obliterated most of their missiles, and they're trying to move the missiles.
I'm blowing up the bridges for the missile movements
around, even during the ceasefire, which I think was a good thing because we're totally loaded up. We have so much ammo. We have so much of everything that we've, like, a much more powerful than it was 4 or 5 weeks ago. So we've used this to restock, and they probably have done a little bit of restocking. We caught a ship yesterday that had some things on it which wasn't very nice. A gift from China, perhaps. I don't know. But
this is what they're relying on as, like, new evidence. Perhaps it was a gift, a dangerous gift, the most dangerous of all. You never know.
I was a little surprised, but because I have a very good relationship, and I thought I had an understanding with.
How did she betray me? How did he do it? How did she do it? I said, not my she. Not my she, I said.
President Xi, but that's all right. That's the way war goes, right? But I will tell you that we have, our military is incredible, what we've done. I mean, think of it. In the first 3 days, we took out their entire Navy, 159 ships. 159 ships, and wiped out their Air Force, wiped out their anti-aircraft, all of their anti-aircraft apparatus is all gone. All of their radar is gone. Their leaders are gone. You know, their leaders are gone. The whole thing is gone. And frankly, this should have been done a long time ago. It would have been a lot easier because they were a lot less lethal a long time ago.
So to be clear, you're saying that you need at least the prospects for a signed deal today and tomorrow, or else you would resume bombing Iran.
Well, I expect to be bombing because I think that's a better attitude to go in with. But we're ready to go. I mean, the military is raring to go. They are absolutely incredible. You know, I built the military in my first term. I'm using it now. The military, when I took it over from Barack Hussein Obama, they had it was so depleted, so sad. And I built it in my first term. You remember those big numbers. You talked to me about it once. That's a lot of money for military. I built it. We did a great job with our military, and we're using it now and rebuilding it, too. We've done a lot of rebuilding also in my first year of the second term. But we have we have the most powerful military in the world. Everybody knows it.
Since we're kind of tight on time, can we just talk about what something else happening today, and that is your pick for Fed Chair Kevin Warsh on Cal.
He's like, enough with this Iran stuff. Every time you talk, every time you open your mouth, the markets suffer. Let's get to your your Fed chair pick.
Capitol Hill. We've had a couple of guests today say the best thing that we need now is for Jay Powell to leave in May like he's supposed to.
If you hate America so much, why don't you fund an American insurgency? What the fuck?
And to have Kevin Warsh in as Fed chair for that next June meeting. But we still have this Justice Department probe hanging over. And I've seen things that you said in recent interviews, Mr. President. And I just want to ask you again, if it would be possible for the Banking Committee to completely investigate all of your concerns about the cost overruns and the testimony of Jay Powell in front of Congress, if you could take that off-ramp to get this moving, and Jay Powell leaves, Kevin Warsh goes in, is that something you'd consider dropping for the DOJ probe to let the Banking Committee handle it?
From the standpoint, Joe, from the standpoint that we have to find out why a small building cost close to $4 billion. It's not finished, by the way. They have a long way to go. They ripped down the most beautiful ceilings. They'll never build them again. The most beautiful, thick, 1.5 foot thick walls of solid masonry. They're never going to be built again. They put up 6-inch sheetrock walls, and they say, so we have no insulation. It's not in the budget. I mean, these walls, they had the best. That building was so beautiful. I would have fixed that building. I would have had it brand new, beautiful for $25 million. And they're going to spend close to $4 billion, maybe more than that. I don't know. It's not finished. In fact, I looked at it the other day. I'm afraid Kevin will have to have an office next to me in the White House because that building's not going to be done. He's not going to be able to use that building for a long time. And, you know, he had a complaint. He said, I didn't realize this. He said the saddest thing is they ripped down the best building. He said there was a building that had beautiful boardrooms that he used many times when he was there, that beautiful boardrooms and meeting rooms. It was so beautiful, the nicest in Washington. And he said they ripped it down. And maybe they did that to save money, like the Gavin Newsom, the railroad with it.
Why do people listen to him? I don't know, because he's the fucking president, dude.
They made it shorter in order to save money, but it's still 25 times over budget. But the worst I've ever heard is the railroad in California, and I think this might be worse. Think of it. I would have fixed that building.
We have to. Like, it's one of those situations where no matter how unhinged or unstable or demented he clearly is, his words still hold tremendous weight. This is what happens when you have a fucking toddler for president, but, you know, he's still the president.
Beautiful. Quickly. 25 million would have been like a brand new building. All the ceilings would have been left. All those beautiful thick walls with gorgeous moldings would have been left. You're going to get a sheetrock ceiling, a sheetrock wall without insulation. They said, sir, insulation's not in the budget. Insulation costs you $100 a room. The whole thing is crazy, and they're at $4. I think it's going to cost more than $4 billion when it's finished.
But
it would somehow Joe, somehow we have to find out how this can happen. It's not the first time. How does this happen? Did the contractor make $3.5 billion?
Right.
You know,
if the banking committee could take it over.
I can't imagine that Too Late is taking money on construction. I can't. But it's possible. But we have to find out why is a job that should have.
I mean, this is the thing that he loves talking about. So it's really funny that this was the entry point into any sort of. This was the entry point into like creating a big deal, a controversy around the current Fed chair. Because it's right in his wheelhouse. He loves talking about building buildings. He's like, this is the one thing. That's why he never shuts the fuck up about the ballroom. Like, it's a fantastic way for Trump to endlessly talk about how the Fed chair has to go to prison. Not because of the real reason, which is what Trump wants, which is to lower interest rates, but because he did a real estate deal that was bad. I don't like the way he did the real estate. I don't like it. You know me. I know how to do real estate. I know how to do developments. It's a very bad deal. Very, very bad deal.
It was $25 million, costing billions and billions of dollars. You know, I built the hotel. It's now the Waldorf. I sold it to Waldorf, and it's now the Waldorf. I built it for $201 million. It's a bigger building than the federal, and it was hotel rooms with bathrooms.
Like, he's comparing the fucking the Jerome Powell's the necessity to prosecute Jerome Powell for a development project that the Fed engaged in with him building a fucking Waldorf Astoria, bro. What is this comparison?
Rooms and, you know, partitions, and it's much more expensive to build a hotel room than it is a nice empty office space, right?
Oh my God!
I built that for $201 million. This now is 8 years ago or so, but think of it. This building, you look at it, it's a little building. It's over. I think it's going to cost over $400 billion. And here's the thing: it's going to be nothing compared to what it was. This is
yeah. It's going to be nothing compared to the Waldorf Astoria. The Waldorf Astoria, beautiful building. Believe me. Can you believe it? Oh, my God. The curtains I put on that. The curtains I put on that Waldorf Astoria. Oh, unbelievable.
And $4 billion, and it's nothing compared to what it was. It was beautiful. It had beautiful ceilings. They're all destroyed. They took them down. I don't know why.
If the DOJ, though, if this goes forward with Department of Justice and it delays him being confirmed, Kevin Warsh, it's kind of counterproductive for what you're trying to do in terms of changing the MO of the Fed up to this point. So I'm just trying to look for an off ramp to get for you.
Well, it is and it isn't, Joe. You have to find out why a thing like that could happen, because if you have hundreds of projects like that, very few are like this, but if you had hundreds of projects like that, you have to find out why that happens. I mean, because we obviously don't do it right. But, we have some great people in government that can do jobs. I build under budget, ahead of schedule. I'm doing a ballroom now. It's a much bigger job than that. And it's going to cost, depending on finishes, like $300 million. It's a much bigger job than that's ahead of schedule. And I have lawsuits every week from all these people, all the do-gooders that stop progress in our country.
Well,
But,
I'm going to give
people
Becky a
love it.
chance, Mr. President, to get you to.
And you can have some extra time. I know my people said 20 minutes, but you can have some extra time.
That's
you
good.
can even put Andrew on the phone. You told me Andrew would not be there. And I said, I don't care.
That was last week. That was last week.
You could even put Andrew on.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Joe made a comment to me. When he tried to get me on, he said, I promise I'll have Andrew Ross talking. He will not be there. He is there. And you can put him on. It's okay.
I didn't say I'd have him. I said he's not in last week, but then you canceled because you were on the West Coast.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well,
I'll chime in a minute. And that's
he's going to be
so... in a second. Becky,
but
go
I don't
ahead.
mind if he's there. I like him. I respect him. He's just wrong on a lot of issues.
There you go.
Okay, go ahead.
Mr. President, thank you. Let's talk a little bit about what you. Hi, sir. Let's talk a little bit about what you expect from your next Fed president. There had been a lot of expectations. You've been very clear about wanting lower rates. But with the situation in Iran right now with higher oil prices, most people tell us that that's going to have to wait. The market itself is not anticipating lower rates or any rate cuts until at least the second half of this year. There's only a 41% chance or something of that, according to the market itself. Will you be disappointed if your new Fed chair, if he gets approved, doesn't cut rates right away?
I would. But let's talk about Iran first. Iran, I'm looking at your numbers now as I speak. I mean, the market's up. We're going to be at 50,000. That's where we were just a little while ago when it started. And when I hit 50,000 on the Dow and 7,000 on the S&P, I said, well, I hate to do this to everybody, but I'm going to have to journey down to a place called Iran and not make sure they don't have a nuclear weapon, because they will blow up the world. You want to see a bad stock market? Try blowing up the Middle East and then Europe, and then they come for us, right? And we're not going to let that happen. So I said to my people, they're all gathered, all these wonderful guys, Scott Bessent, the whole group, Howard, they're all doing a good job. I said, fellas, I got a little bad news for you. I'm going to put a little wrinkle in your numbers. Why, sir? We're going down to a place called Iran, and we're going to make sure that they never have a nuclear weapon, because they'll use it to blow up, because they're religious fanatics, and they will use that weapon to blow up the world, but they'll start with Israel in the Middle East, and we're not going to let that happen. And they said, wow, that's going to be bad. I said, yeah, it's going to hurt the market, and it's going to drive up the price of oil and whatever it is. But that's peanuts compared to what would happen if we let this happen. And I told them, 47 years other presidents wanted to do it. They never had the guts, the courage to do it. I said, we have to do it. And they understood that, very professional. They're great guys, great people. Jameson's doing such a great job, all of them. And so I said, we're going down, and we're going to do our little thing. And we did. And we've, knocked out. We've totally won the war. If you read the New York Times, you think, oh, gee, when are we surrendering? We have totally beat them militarily and otherwise. I mean, I wish you could hear the conversations we have with them. We are victorious. If we left right now, it would take them 20 years to rebuild. And they can't get the nuclear dust because it was obliterated by the B-2 bombers that went in. They never got the credit they should get. They've tried to get down there. We have cameras from Space Force on it all the time. They've tried to get down. They can't get down. That place was obliterated. They did such a good job. The left tries to make it, tries to demean all the time, like, oh, well, maybe it wasn't totally obliterated. It was, and they can't get it, or they would have tried to get it. But the fact is that we took this little journey. And if you would have told me that the Dow is almost, I'm looking at your thing, I mean, literally we're at 50,000. And if you would have told me that oil is at 90 as opposed to 200, I would be frankly surprised. And you know what is happening? Boats are finding other sources. They're going up to Texas and Louisiana. They're going to Alaska. They're going to other places. It's an amazing phenomenon. When there are problems, people find out how to take care of things. And the Strait's very important. But people have found out. I mean, you're taking a look. Look at your numbers right now. I'm looking at where the stock market's up, where it's, look at that, S&P. The numbers are what they were when we started this whole thing. I thought they'd be down 20% or down a very substantial amount. Even when it was down more a couple of weeks ago, I was surprised. I thought it would be down much more, and I thought the oil would be much higher. And I'm very happy to say that it wasn't. And when it's over, and it will end, when it's over, they want it to be over immediately. And I just looked at a little chart. World War I, 4 years and 3 months. World War II, 6 years. Korean War, 3 years. Vietnam, 19 years. Iraq, 8 years. I'm 5 months. Okay, 5 months. I would have won Vietnam.
I read this as a threat, by the way. When he talks about how long some of these other the wars have taken, I feel like he's saying, first of all, 5 months is, I thought it was just 55 days or so. But also, I feel like he's saying we're going to be in it for a lot longer, Vietnam.
Very quickly. I would have, if I were president, I would have won Iraq in the same amount of time that we won, because essentially we've won here. Okay. I mean,
he's out of his dang mind, dude. How can anybody look at this guy running this country and go, well, that's a country I can invest in. This yield, to me, what this demented old man is saying, you know what that says to me? Stability, okay? This inspires confidence in me to continue investing into the United States of America. Everything is gonna be fine.
People can play games.
Like Donald Trump's statements and market moves in the aftermath of Donald Trump's statements show me one thing, and that is that the money is unbelievably fake, and stock market confidence is just a never-ending cycle of copium that has nothing to do with whatever the previous market fundamentals used to be. It's anchored around delusion and a mutual interest in the market growing. It has nothing to do with any fundamentals. It has nothing to do with like actual serious analysis and looking at what Trump is saying, looking at where the American government is going. It's just everybody thinking, this just has to keep going up. There's no other way around it.
The Democrats can say, well, we should have done better, no matter what. If I did it in 1 week, they'd say, we should have done better. Look at Venezuela. I took it over in 45 minutes. It was basically a 45-minute. And by the way, a very strong military country. And we took it over in a day, but let's be nice. But we basically took it over in 45 minutes. We took it over during the attack in 45 minutes.
Mr. President,
and they would say, I'm surprised they haven't said it, that you should have done it in 30 minutes. It took too long, So it's tough. But we can't let traders like Schumer put pressure on you where they say, we want out. Think how bad that is. I'm negotiating with these people, and they're telling us, we have to get out now, we have to get out now, we have to get now. And they were in a war for 18 years. They were in a war for, think of that, Vietnam, 19 years, Iraq, 8 years. So
right.
I want to make a good deal. I'm not going to be rushed. I have all the time in the world. I want to make not a good deal. I want to make a great deal. I don't want to do this, go through this. And, if you look at this, what we've suffered in terms of losses, we lost 13 men, and that's terrible. I wish we didn't lose one. But if somebody would have said, we've done this and obliterated that country, obliterated it, and we lost 13 men, people would have said, that's not possible to have done that. It's not possible.
Right.
So we've done a great job, and I don't want to be rushed by people that are really treasonous as far as I'm concerned, and it's just, I watch this low IQ guy, Hakeem Jeffries. He's a totally low IQ person, and he's always ranting and raving, oh, this war is so terrible, terrible. They shouldn't be saying that when we're in the midst of a negotiation, because it does hurt us somewhat. It gives the other side some hope, and I don't want them to have hope.
Mr. President, I wanted to ask you about Anthropic, if I could, for a second, because this is a company that your administration has declared a supply chain risk. And I want to understand the determination for that. There's a view by some that it's political, but more importantly, at the same time that this is happening, reportedly, the NSA and other parts of the government are using Claude, which, of course, is the large language model of Anthropic, and how you square that.
Well, Anthropic is a group of very smart people, but they started telling our military how to operate, and we didn't want that. And they tend to be on the left, radical left, but we get along with them. In fact, they came to the office. They came to the White House a few days ago, and we had some very good talks with them, and I think they're shaping up. They're very smart, and I think they can be of great use. I like smart people. I like high IQ people, and they definitely have high IQs, you know? It's one of those things, and I think we'll get along with them just fine.
So do you think a deal will be made so that Anthropic will be allowed to be used inside the Defense Department in the future?
We want the smartest people. Now, in the meantime, we replaced Anthropic with somebody else. You know who they are, and they're very, very smart people. Sam Altman, a very, very smart group. We have a lot of smart groups. We have some brilliant people. We have the most brilliant people in the world. President Xi told me that. He said Silicon Valley, he called it Silicon Valley. During a conversation, I have a great relationship with him. He said, you have the smartest people in the world. And we do. You take a look at what's happening with Jensen and all of these people, and they're great.
President Xi, I call him. Silicon Valley, I call it. Very high IQ people. She said, you have the most high IQ people. They're so handsome. They are so handsome. IRGC Media Tasnim's information from various sources indicates that Iran had not requested an extension of the ceasefire. That's unsurprising. We kind of know that already. Donald Trump decided to extend the ceasefire on his own. And yes, Trita Parsi's assessment was somewhat correct for the record. I will get to that in a second. Trump caves and agrees to the extended ceasefire while presenting it as a function of the Iranian government being in disarray. Very importantly, he's also extending the ceasefire indefinitely, which reflects the outcome I have argued is the most likely. No deal, no sanctions relief, no nuclear compromise, no return to war while Iran continues to control the strait. Not a stable situation, but one in which Trump pockets the central thing he sought, which is exiting the war, while Iran is bereft of the main thing it was looking for, sanctions lifting. The one aspect of this back and forth that I consider to be interesting, however, is that while there is an ungraceful exit seemingly from this weird limbo that we're in now, is the Strait of Hormuz closed? Is the Strait of Hormuz open? Well, the one thing that remains is that it is actually closed, right? The American Navy is still closing the Strait of Hormuz. So if that's the case, if the American Navy is still very much firmly keeping the Strait of Hormuz closed, then the economic impact will still continue. And therefore, in this war of attrition, that's still beneficial for Iran. It's not as beneficial for Iran because they don't get their maximalist goals across, which is, again, sanctions relief, obviously. But I see this as potential perfidy. Your Zateo article just dropped. Oh, hell yeah. Inside the heart and mind of Hassan Piker. Prem Tucker traveled to L.A. to go beyond the media outrage and talk directly with a Twitch streamer and prominent leftist about religion, politics, war, and whether he'd go on Tucker Carlson's show. Nice. We will read this later. Okay. He should be called Mao Zedong the way he be good to China. Oh, he is. He is. Iran has said over and over again that they will actually attend a new round of talks if Trump opens the Strait of Hormuz, like the American side of the blockade. Barack Ravid knows the real reason behind the extension. Behind the scenes, one reason for Trump's decision is that the U.S. and Pakistani mediators have been waiting for Iran's Supreme Leader Moshtaba Khamenei to respond to the latest proposal and give a clear directive to his negotiators, according to a regional source familiar with the mediation efforts and an Israeli source with knowledge of the discussions. Khamenei is expected to give his response on Wednesday, the Israeli source said. The Iranian negotiators said they are waiting for a green light from the Supreme Leader, the regional source said. Let's see what the Iranians are saying, though. Iran's permanent rep to the UN, Iravani, as soon as the U.S. breaks the naval blockade, the next round of negotiations will take place in Islamabad. So I believe the Iranian side on this, more so than the idea that Mojtaba Khamenei has final say here, and that's the reason why they haven't been able to move on the talks. And the reason why I say that is because these are the very same sources on the American side and the Israeli side that said Mojtaba Khamenei was probably dead. Okay? So they are the ones who, for the longest time, said he was incapable of making decisions because he's dead or close to being dead. And now they're the ones who are like, oh, just kidding. He's alive, actually. And also gay. Yeah, they were like, he's both dead and gay. Or half dead and definitely full gay. And now they're like, oh, he's gay, but also making decisions and alive now. You know, he's probably not well. I mean, I suspect that he is not doing great. That makes sense. If he was struck as well, I believe that. But yeah.
I'm gay and Lebanese.
Who said he was gay? You don't remember? The New York Post. And Trump himself said it. Trump was like, I've heard he's gay. That's what Trump said. The fuck? They actually called him gay? Yes. Yes, dude. Long gone are the days of previous titans. Warmongers who were bloodthirsty all the same. But at least they had like some kind of competent media strategy. Nowadays, we just, say he's dead and gay and call it a day. Yeah, you don't remember?
Did the CIA tell you that Ayatollah Jr.'s gay?
Well, they did say that, but I don't know if it was only them. I think a lot of people are saying that.
That's what this is. That's what we're doing. That's what we're fucking doing. It's very hard to... It's very hard to take these guys seriously. You know what I mean?
Of the United States, it is a violation of the ceasefire. And we told them that they should break this blockade. We have received some sign that they are ready to break it. And as soon as they broke this blockade, I think that the next round of the negotiation will take place in Istanbul. So to them, we have not initiated the military aggression. They initiated the war against us, and we are ready. If they want to sit on table and discuss and find a political solution, they will find us ready. If they want to go to the war, in this case also Iran is ready for that. It was one of the conditions that we put that the ceasefire should be entire the region, even including the Lebanon also. Naval blockade of the United States, it is violation.
More from Reuters, from Phil Stewart, chief national security reporter for Reuters. U.S. President Donald Trump's ceasefire extension is a ploy to buy time for a surprise strike. An advisor to Iran's parliament speaker and top negotiator Mohammad Bakr Kalibaf said on Tuesday. Kalibaf's advisor said on a post on X that the continuation of the U.S. blockade on Iranian ports was no different from bombardment and must be met with a military response. These were the alerts from an Iranian official hitting the Reuters wire. Trump's ceasefire extension means nothing. The losing side cannot dictate terms. Advisor to Iran's parliament speaker, Kalibaf. Continuation of the blockade is no different from bombardment and must be met with a military response. Advisor to Iran's parliament speaker says Trump's ceasefire extension is certainly a ploy to buy time for a surprise strike. Iran must take initiative, advisor to Iran's parliament speaker says. I do think that there is a high likelihood that this is perfidy to once again restart the bombing campaign. Obviously not like a full-blown military occupation. They don't have enough troops amassed in the region for a full-blown military invasion. They might have enough now for a special operation, like trying to control the coastline of Iran and trying to seize, like, maybe not Karg Island, but one of the islands in the region to apply pressure to gain some kind of leverage over Iran. But They clearly do not have enough troops. The American military, as it stands currently, does not have enough active duty combat troops that are combat ready, that are willing to take on a combat role to wage war on Iran. Okay, the coastline is gigantic. They can't do it. I said one part of the coastline, not the entire coastline. They can't do the entire coastline. No. I said at most, they could try, and I'm not guaranteeing success here, but they could try to, yes, we do. That's literally not true. Oh my God, this guy, it's the same guy again. Yes, we do. That's literally not true. This is Mr. We got contingencies, gang. Mr. Gangy is back. Bruh, if you believe this type of shit, we have the largest military budget in the world. You crazy if you think half of the stockpile's gone, bro. The biggest military budget, yet still low stockpiles. Sure, bro. China would have been done. China would have been done if that... What? Would have been done that if they were serious? It's not that hard. That don't mean shit, bro. Iran losses hundreds of millions of dollars every day because of the blockade. They don't control shit, bro. Yes, you did. What way should they be punished for the massacres? Bro, why is he saying this shit? Lamau Trump is clowned out. He sounds scared. Keck W, here we go. Bro, Iran literally loses money from that. How is that beneficial? Hassan, explain. How do I begin? Where do I go with this? My guy is back every day. It's been 50 fucking days. And this guy comes in here, sees everything that I said to be true, and still moves the conversation to a different goalpost every day. Respect. Okay, respect. I wish I had the confidence that this guy has in America's military superiority in anything. Okay, I wish I had this level of belief in anything. Myself, someone else, the international socialist movement, you know, anything at all. This guy has unbelievable confidence in America's military capabilities when every single day America shows its ass. This is Mr. Contingency. Okay, he's back. I'm actually a fan of you, big bro. I'm a fan of you. I've become a fan of you in this time frame. I know you're a fan. You come in here every day to try to argue with me with the dumbest talking points I've ever heard in my entire life. We'll look at like military analysts. We'll look at military analysts conforming the reporting of CSIS, talking about the missile stockpiles diminishing, which is literally something that Trump's main general warned about ahead of this military campaign. And this guy will go, nah. His answer is, nah. It don't matter. It's so awesome. It is so awesome that you got General Dan Kane warning that what is currently happening right now would have happened if we waged war with Iran. You got 50 plus days of diminishing stockpiles, utilizing standoff munitions that were for a peer adversary or a near peer adversary like Russia or China. Okay. You got CSIS reporting being confirmed by insiders in the Pentagon, by mainstream media outlets, like competent military analysts warning about the exact same thing, once again, that General Dan Kane said 55 days ago. And he's still like, well, guess what? Guess what? I don't believe it. How do you know that actually happened? How can you know anything if you don't literally see with your own two eyes at that point? There's not, like, the answer is like the only thing that you can confirm is observable reality that you observe with your own two eyes. Okay? You don't believe CNN reporters for anything else, but when it comes to this, all of a sudden, because it's not just CNN. First of all, I do believe CNN reporters. That's objectively untrue. I rely on mainstream reporting on every piece of analysis. Okay, but what I do is also look at their biases. Right? CNN has no interest in this instance to make it seem like America's stockpiles are diminishing. So that's the reason. And this is not just CNN, reporting on this. This is military analysts that are also offering corresponding information. And last but not least, this is coming 55 days after the fucking main general himself warned about it. At some point, you have to look at the overwhelming amount of evidence here and assume that there's probably a little bit of veracity to the claims being made. Okay, guys, enough dogpiling Hassan's favorite chatter. I'm sorry you will never be Hassan's favorite chatter, but you certainly won't get there by being mean. You will get there by being stupid. That's not true. No, you can be a good chatter if you offer good analysis as well. This chatter just happens to have one of the stupidest positions I've ever encountered, because his retort always is "nuh-uh," and then finally, "How could you know?" Your tweet is so confusing. Is it your rage plus another guest for Chad Vice, or just rage? No, secret guest for Chad Vice as well. Why are Iran's preconditions for negotiations only the removal of the blockade and not that Israel withdraws from Lebanon and has actual ceasefire with Hezbollah? No, because Israel, as it stands currently, is only conducting minor operations in Lebanon and not doing the major bombing campaigns. So that's good enough for the Iranian negotiators as a precondition. Obviously, the full negotiation, the full scope of the negotiation will, I assume, have demands for Israel to do a full-blown withdrawal from Lebanon. Before the Iran war began, Joint Chief of Staff Chairman General Dan Kane and other military leaders warned Trump that a protracted military campaign could impact U.S. weapons stockpiles, particularly those that support Israel and Ukraine. We and others previously reported. Okay? And guess what? Lo and behold, that is exactly what happened. That's what I'm talking about. You can't say, oh, you don't believe in CNN reporters. I do believe in CNN reporters. I believe in real reporting. I cover plenty of news that comes out of CNN that I do agree with. Sometimes I'll criticize the tone or the biases that they have in their reporting in the process of still looking at their verifiable, objective reporting that is, under the underneath all that bias, there's still real evidence-based, fact-based reporting. I don't believe in Iowa. Yeah. Iowa doesn't exist. Why? Well, I've never been there. So how could I know that it exists in reality? What is this? Anyway, let's finish this Trump idiocy and then we'll move on.
Great honor to be working. I think Tim Cook, I see he's retiring. I wrote a piece about him today, and got to know him very well.
I wrote a piece about Tim Cook. What the fuck?
Fantastic person, did an unbelievable job. And I say it respectfully, but if Steve Jobs had lived and ran the company, it might have done good, but it wouldn't have done, I think, nearly as good as the job Tim has done. And I got to work with Tim, so I really know it. I know what I'm talking about. He's a very unusual guy. He gets things done.
Mr. President, yeah, we did read your entire Truth Social post. I just want to return for 1 second and make an analogy here. You saw what inflation did to the Biden legacy and administration. So 22% price increases. By the time he was leaving, it was down to about where it is now, about 3%. But not a single.
It was down to 5%. It wasn't down.
Well, or 3, but not a single
person. And the reason it was
person.
down was because I had won the election, and it started falling after I won the election, and I started getting prices down from right after November 5th.
If you needed to prevent that from happening, let's say Chair Warstock, for whatever reason, there's some type of energy shock, who knows, with the blockade. Let's say that things got too hot. At that point, just to make sure there was no inflation, would you allow him to raise rates or not cut rates? Would there ever be a period where you could see that was something that a Fed chair needed to do? And if you said he might have an office right near yours, he might not want an office right next to yours, sir. I don't know. After what happened to Jay Powell, you might want to be across in those new digs, maybe.
Maybe I'd like him next to me. Actually, it's not a bad idea. Maybe Jay Powell did us a big service in retrospect. I call him too late. He's just too late. He's always too late, except when it came to before the election, but that didn't quite work out well for him. So the answer is I want Kevin. I think Kevin's great. He's really
He sent
Trump interview, AOC, Shoycott, AOC, you see me, little bro. No one cares about Trump. Shoycott, AOC beef. Shoycott, AOC beef coverage, little bruh. Buddy, are you okay? What do you think is more important? What do you think is more important right now? The motherfucking president talking about the next steps, potentially? Or your own personal hatred for Shoycott Chakrabarti? Lem FAO, 100 million from Stripe. Lem FAO, 100 million from Stripe. Yeah, it kind of feels like you have a personal stake in this. Like, you don't like Shoycott Chakrabarti because he happened to hit the fucking lottery by being the founding engineer of a company that made him hundreds of millions of dollars. And now you're like, oh, that's the reason why he's, an unsavory fellow. I can't trust him. He's not trustworthy, which is fine. I mean, I had my skepticisms as well.
Forecasting in a true sense. Okay,
But
I think he's going to do a great
I don't
job.
understand why you think that is like the most important thing that we need to get to
If
right
there's
now.
time for- I've been in favor of interest rate rises to stop inflation. I think it sort of is effective. But there's one thing, and nobody ever talks about it but me, unfortunately. So I'm sure it's not correct.
What did he
I
say?
think it is. We should have the lowest interest
I'm just
rate in the
LARPing.
world.
I
When
live
I
in
was a young
Louisiana.
guy growing up, we always.
Bro, you're fucking cooked anyway. You live in Louisiana. You're fucked.
Had the lowest interest rate worldwide. We always did. And then 15 years ago, 20 years ago, it started where Switzerland and other people had lower rates than us. And I just had a thing with, if you take a look at some of the, let's call them like elite countries. They're only elite because we allow them to walk away with $30 billion and $40 billion a year, but I don't do that so much anymore.
Yes, I have looked into Xavier Becerra for California governor, and I don't like it, okay? I don't like it. Out of all of the options with viability right now, Tom Steyer is the only guy that has like an actual progressive campaign. Xavier Becerra is now being looked at by Gavin Newsom as like the real viability pick. Xavier Becerra was somewhat progressive. Here, just go to the lever for reporting on Becerra. Becerra is no. Okay?
I sort of put a clamp
He
on.
is the Swalwell replacement. Yes. Whole timeline is Xavier Becerra. I don't know why. The reason why the whole timeline is Xavier Becerra is because he got like 8 fucking points in this poll that came out. And that's the reason why they're pushing for him aggressively, because they want to collapse all of the remaining centrist support behind him. Why Tom Steyer over Katie Porter? Tom Steyer has an infinitely more progressive platform than Katie Porter. Katie Porter started as a progressive darling and basically became this establishment Democrat. Katie Porter also has her own staff abuse drama as well surrounding her campaign. Not the same as like, not the same, of course, as Eric Swalwell, obviously, but both Xavier Becerra and Katie Porter have gone from being somewhat progressive to when they actually were supposed to meet the moment, have become unbelievable centrists. Xavier is pronounced Javier, by the way. All right,
That with the
apologies.
tariffs and charges that we charged them, because they were elite, because they were making billions and billions of dollars from the United States, larger, and other reasons. And they run a good
Becerra,
operation,
when he
but
was
it's
at
easier to run
the
it good
when he
when
was
you
at the
make that-
HHS, did here. We'll do it later. We'll do
much
it later.
money, where we have these massive
Yeah,
deficits.
Our Revolution endorsed Tom Steyer recently.
It's with you take a look at some of the countries, but Switzerland is one. They talk, oh yes, we are a small and brilliant. Well, they're brilliant because they pay us almost nothing. Now they pay a little bit. They should pay much more. We'll get that up a little bit. But if you take a look at Denmark, you take a look at all these countries, you think of them so good. They pay such a low interest rate. Well, if we charge them, and what happened with me is I charged some of them, and they squawked like you wouldn't believe it. They called, and we are a small country. All of a sudden, I realized they're not elite. We're elite. We're being sucked dry. And we can't do that. And you'll see that. You know, we had a little setback with the Supreme Court. They said I can charge tariffs, but I have to do it a different way. And because of what they did, we have to pay back $160 billion. All they had to do is add one sentence, just one sentence. And that's, you don't have to pay anything taken in thus far back. But because they didn't add, and by the way, it was a close call, too. There were justices that were powerful that I was right on the tariffs. But because we lost by just 2 votes, you know, just little vote, 2 votes, we have to pay back $165 billion. They could have, with a little one sentence, you don't have to pay back tariffs that have already been received. You start from this point, and you do it a different way. So we're doing it a different way. We're going to end up with the same. Actually, we'll end up with bigger numbers, actually, but it's a little more unwieldy, but it's the way it's been done. But it's so sad
Mr. President,
that the Supreme Court didn't want to save our country with one sentence, $165 billion. And we're giving a lot of that money back to people that hate our country. So I'm not happy with the Supreme Court, I'll be honest with you, okay?
Mr. President, on that topic, there's a whole number of very large companies, including Apple and Amazon and others, that have not sought reimbursements yet for the tariffs, meaning they haven't tried to collect refunds. And from what I understand, part of the reason that they have waited is because there is a worry about, frankly, offending you. Would you find it offensive for them to try to collect a refund?
I think it's brilliant if they don't do that. I actually think if they don't do that, they got to know me very well. I'm very honored by what you just said. If they don't do that, I'll remember them. I will tell you that, because I'm looking to make this country strong. Supreme Court could have helped us. Now they have birthright citizenship. They'll probably rule against us. No country in the world has it.
Tom Steyer going to say genocide on your stream? I know. He wasn't able to. And yet, his position on Israel is still the strongest out of all the top candidates with viability, the top 2 being Republicans who are super pro-Israel, super pro-genocide, and others who can't even get themselves to criticize Israel at all. Now, before you say Ramsey Robinson or Butch Ware, yes, I'm talking about the candidates with viability this close out from the race. They have not been able to reach a significant audience. They have their own issues as well. I'm not going to get into it. But with all of the top candidates with viability, Katie Porter and Xavier Becerra, or Javier Becerra, neither of which have a position that's even remotely close to our side on the issue of Israel, as opposed to Tom Steyer.
It's horrible for our country. And I just see it, you know. I see some of these Republicans that are nominated by me asking real bad questions, and looks like maybe we're going to lose that one, too. Look what happened with NIL. They destroyed college sports, the court system, destroyed. So hard to put that one back, Humpty Dumpty, so hard to put that one back together. You know, we had 150 years of...
I'm not voting for Steyer. I'd rather just not vote. Okay. I mean, fine. You're always talking about viability. You realize you were still wrong even in 2016 when you personally said Bernie was disqualified from being president because he was unelectable. Wait, what? Hello, Kaya. Hi. Someone's bored. Hello. Okay, I know you want pets, but Daddy's working right now. Come here. Come here. Kaya, come here. Kaya! You are Hillary Clinton. Yes, that's right. I am Hillary Clinton. This is true. I am Hillary Clinton. Fuck the stream, pet Kaya. Is that chatter joking? No. I am not Hillary.
Of rulings and everything else, and they had such a great system. It was a scholarship system. You get free college if you're a good athlete. You get this, you get that. And it took care of every sport. Fencing, not only football. Now it's all football, and the
Okay, dude. All right, fuck it. I'm not listening to the rest of this shit. I don't give a fuck. All right. It's just so annoying. Anyway, Sirota wrote a scathing article on Javier Becerra. When I think about California's governor race, there is one thing everyone needs to know about Javier Becerra. As California's attorney general, he demanded the HHS secretary use existing law to lower medicine prices. And then he became the HHS secretary and literally refused to do that. And to be clear, this was depressing because there really was so much potential. Becerra came into the HHS job as an advocate of a set of things he refused to be an advocate for once he was in office. It was bad. Okay? That's the problem. Xavier, what the fuck? Which one is it? Oh my God. I don't know. Is it Javier? Is it Xavier? Is it Xavier? Oh my God, you guys. There has been 3 different versions of it now. I don't know. I don't know what to say. I'm not saying it right. I'm sorry. It depends on the person. Javier? I'm just going to keep saying Xavier. Would it kill you to listen to how a person pronounces their own name? I don't know if you noticed that, but I don't know how he pronounces his own name, which is why, first of all, let's be real. There is no way that he pronounces his own name in the 4 different styles that people have yelled at me over in the last hour. Now someone is saying caviar. This link is not working. Okay, Javier. Okay, it's Javier. It's Javier. I'm saying Javier. That's all I need to know. You just got Latinx, buddy? All right. Okay. I didn't hear him say that himself, though. Well, he was standing next to him, and he didn't correct him. Okay? It's pronounced Hillary Clinton. We're going with Javier. Okay? We're going with Javier. Mi gente. You cut it off right before he corrected him. I'm going to lose my mind. Okay. Anyway, this is some of the main reasons, and this is one of the biggest reasons. But outside of this, you look at his proposals, and they are nowhere near as progressive as Tom Steyer's are. Okay? That's it. And that's perhaps the reason why Gavin Newsom has decided to lean into him. And the California establishment has decided, all right, we got to throw our support behind this guy. Okay? Just be glad you didn't drop his name like this.
I'm grateful to the members of my COVID team that I'd like to introduce to you now, who will lead the way. I'm really proud of this group. For Secretary of Health and Education Service, I nominated Javier Baccaria.
Javier Baccaria. It turns out he got the first name right, but the last name, holy shit. He said Javier Baccaria.
Javier Baccaria. You know, Javier Becerra, excuse me.
Javier Baccaria. He said Javier Zekiria. Oh my God. All right. Let's keep it going. Okay. Yeah. Throwback when Jill pronounced bodega as Bogeda. Bogeda? That's awesome. Anyway, he said Macarena. Trump's decision contradicts, by the way, Barack Ravid in Hebrew is also posting these funny emotes, which I like. Trump's decision contradicts his own statement on Tuesday morning that he does not want to extend the ceasefire. While the move signals that he is not interested in resuming the war, he risks undermining his leverage. Both the absence of pressure from an approaching deadline and the damage to the credibility of the American military threat. Aw, womp womp. There is also Hamid Reza Azizi assessment. We're going to be reading back to no war, no peace. The extension of the ceasefire for an undefined period while a naval blockade remains in place against Iran is widely viewed with Iranian debates as a highly unfavorable scenario. Some commentators even describe it as a worst-case outcome. Some commentators as in Trita Parsi, as it effectively reverses Iran's earlier strategy of attritional pressure and redirects it back onto Iran itself. In this situation, Iran is placed in a state of suspension, neither war nor peace, which Iranian leaders have explicitly sought to avoid since the outset of the conflict, preferring instead a decisive conclusion. From Tehran's perspective, statements by Donald Trump and the current trajectory suggest that the shadow of war continues to loom over the country and its already strained economy. At the same time, the United States retains freedom of action, preserving the option to re-escalate militarily at a time of its choosing. This dynamic is further compounded by the ability of Israel to choose or to continue to operate in a gray zone environment. Taken together, economic pressures through the blockade, strategic uncertainty, and continued low-intensity confrontation, this scenario is seen as gradually eroding Iran's remaining strategic capacity. Over time, it could also intensify internal divisions among political factions, making crisis management more difficult for the leadership. Behind 339, thank you for the 25 gifted subs. In this reading, Trump's extension of the ceasefire is not interpreted as a face-saving exit from the conflict, but rather as a recalibration of the war's form and shape, which lowers costs for the United States while increasing them for Iran. This helps explain why Tehran may be reluctant to accept such an arrangement and could continue instead to consider more assertive responses. Much will depend on whether the naval blockade is enforced in a substantive way or remains largely symbolic. A key potential trigger for renewed escalation would be any further interdiction or seizure of Iranian vessels. Such an incident could be framed by Iran as a violation of the ceasefire, potentially prompting a military response against U.S. naval forces and leading to a return to active conflict. From the perspective of some Iranian decision makers, this may be seen as less costly than either yielding under pressure or remaining in a prolonged state of strategic limbo. So, from the IRGC's perspective, they want to go back to waging war against the United States of America, potentially still apply pressure. They have seen a lot of gains as they have continuously waged war. Okay? It's true. Crippling the global economy, and maintaining control over the Strait of Hormuz and consistently pummeling GCC states to force them to apply pressure to the United States of America, continuously pummeling Israel, has allowed Iran to maintain a upper hand in the negotiations process. It has forced America's hand into coming to the ceasefire negotiations and have to deal with Iran directly. And now they're floating ideas. Now they're floating around ideas like sanctions relief and things of that nature, right? So obviously, if that's what they've seen, a lot of benefits. If those are the kinds of moves that Iran has seen get rewarded on the main stage, then that's what they're going to want to do. There are, however, still those who want to bargain and negotiate with the American side, the moderates, right? And their perspective is not going to be as their perspective is still important. They are the ones who are at the table. But this current situation where they're in limbo, where the American blockade continues, which the Iranian side is saying is a violation of their preconditions to even get to the table, mean that as long as the American blockade continues, Iran doesn't negotiate. And while Iran doesn't negotiate, they're also not fighting. So we'll see. So Trump's extension of the ceasefire is one-sided. Iran says they didn't even ask for an extension for the ceasefire. They're trying to make the most of this to say, like, look, they're retreating. And in some ways they are, right? If America was continuing the war effort, if this was so beneficial for them, they would continue bombing Iran. They haven't achieved any of their military objectives by bombing Iran, which is precisely the reason why America has extended the ceasefire while Iran has said they did not make any demands to do so. What America has to do is end the secondary blockade, allowing the Iranian side to let vessels through as long as they still abide by whatever the Iranian conditions are, which I assume is still maintaining some kind of toll system. Having said that, let's take a look at John Goetsheimer and Chris Goetjes on the Chris Goetjes report.
Continues to carry out what it defines as acts of aggression. Iranian forces will respond accordingly. Tehran's 10-point proposal submitted before the first round of Islamabad talks is...
Chris Hedges. Okay, Goetjes doesn't work for Hedges. Chris the Goat Hedges and John Goatsheimer.
The basis for further negotiations. But the 10 points include a number of conditions the U.S. has repeatedly rejected. It demands the lifting of all primary and secondary sanctions on Iran, continued Iranian control over the Strait of Hormuz, U.S. military withdrawal from the Middle East, an end to attacks on Iran and its allies, the release of some $100 billion in frozen Iranian assets, and a UN Security Council resolution making any deal binding. So where are we? Is the Trump administration ready to make concessions in the face of Iran's ability to strangle the global economy by shutting down the Strait of Hormuz? What will be the role of Israel, which has threatened to resume attacks on Iran? With perhaps only 5% of the pre-war 20% of the oil and natural gas making its way through the strait, how much more can the global economy, already under severe distress, endure before it triggers a global economic crisis? Joining me to discuss the crisis in the Middle East is Professor John Mearsheimer. He is the R. Wendell Harrison Distinguished Service Professor of Political Science at the University of Chicago. Professor Mearsheimer, who graduated from West Point and was a captain in the U.S. Air Force, is the author of numerous books, including Conventional Deterrence, Nuclear Deterrence, Ethics, Lidl Hart and the Weight of History, The Tragedy of Great Power Politics, The Israel Lobby, and U.S.
Oh my God. Good girl. Oh my God. I got her to. Oh my God. Look at this. I got her to stand on the chair. Uppies. Come on. Get up here. Okay. Come on. Up. Hold it. Come on. Oh, no. Oh, that was so close. That was the closest we have ever been. The Kaya. I think if this chair was bigger, she would literally stand on it. Like, she would be able to get on top of it. Good girl, Kaya. Chair moved, unfortunately, so she couldn't do it. Stand behind the chair, turn the chair around. Give her your chair. My chair has wheels on it, so she can't sit on it. Hold on. Okay, well, this is important. Well, let's see if the... Kaya, come here. Come here. Uppies. 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 Oh, my God, yes. Up. Uppies. Kaya. No. She don't fuck with it. She doesn't like it. Look, you can't even see, but she's like, no, I'm not invested in this at all. Sorry. Not into it. The hell? Oh, get an armchair for guests and Kaya. You could get one of those full moon camping chairs. I'm sure they'd be big enough for her. Do you really think it's appropriate to get Jeffrey Sachs to host Chad Weiss? Yes.
That's foreign policy and why leaders lie, the truth about lying in international politics. The big question for me, John, is does the Trump administration realize, in your view, that this is a game that Iran controls, that essentially because of their stranglehold on the Strait of Hormuz, they're largely going to be able to dictate the terms?
Well, let me just reinforce what you said, Chris. I think there's no question that if you go up the escalation ladder, which the Trump administration...
What is this? I never noticed that John Mearsheimer, the GOAT, has a hand-drawn cartoon of himself right behind him, standing menacingly.
...is threatening to do after the ceasefire ends on Wednesday, that we cannot win. And in fact, I would make the argument that it's in Iran's advantage for the United States to go up the escalation ladder, because the longer this war goes on and the less oil that comes out of the Persian Gulf and maybe even the Red Sea, the better for Iran. So I think going up the escalation ladder makes no sense for us. The $64,000 question is whether or not President Trump and his advisors understand that. And my guess is that they do. And therefore, I think that we will go to great lengths to work out some sort of deal on Wednesday or before Wednesday so that we don't have to go up the escalation ladder. I just find it.
What is this on? Defend a culture that legally allows child marriage? Wait, what? I don't defend the American culture, the Southern American culture, the red state culture that defends child marriage. What the hell? Bro thought I was a defender of Alabama or something. That's crazy. I don't defend the evangelical culture of child marriage. Arabic culture. Yeah, I don't defend child marriage, chatter. I don't defend it no matter who does it. The difference between you and I is, of course, you probably defend it when white people do it. And you assume that this is only a thing that Arabic culture does. No such thing. Okay, out. Get out. Get.
It's hard to believe that the administration would be interested in escalating. But, you never know with the Trump administration and with President Trump in particular. So it's hard to say for sure. But I don't see them going
Bro's
up the
trying to
escalation
Uno
level.
reverse to avoid criticism. Buddy, if you can find a single instance where I've defended child marriage, I'll give you a fucking $1 million, okay? There is no Uno reverse here, you fucking idiot. You can't claim Uno reversal and he's trying to avoid criticism if the criticism is not landing because it's something that you invented in your fucking mind. I've never defended child brides or child marriage at all. You're a fucking moron. What am I supposed to do? Avoid criticism when the criticism is just made up in your mind? I can't fight your demons for you, buddy. Maybe you thought I was Asmongold or something, because between him and I, only one has unironically defended at least some of the child bride culture. There's only one political movement in the country that I live in that is actively trying to keep child marriages intact, and that is a political movement that I oppose, evangelical Christianity. Even if it's not the entirety of the evangelical Christian movement, it's more often than not Republicans who do defend child marriage, who do actually try to keep it legal. Yeah, maybe he confused you for one of the 51 Republicans in the Texas House that voted against HB 168, which aimed to prohibit marriage for anyone under the age of 18. Yeah. What happened? Big if true. Oh, Cory Bush leaked it. Well, my queen. Mike Moon, a Republican state senator from Missouri, voted for child marriage. Yeah. Oh, I oppose fundamentalists and fundamentalism of all sorts. Okay? You can't be openly in favor of Donald Trump and then act like you give a shit about pedophilia when Donald Trump and his closest in his circle are all up and down the Jeffrey Epstein list. Okay? It's totally ridiculous.
I think they'll try to craft a deal. And if they don't have all of the essentials in place, they'll just extend the ceasefire. So that's my surmise as to where this one is headed.
I want to ask you about the 10 points because many of these points, the removal of U.S. military bases from the region, continued control of the Strait of Hormuz, these are pretty bitter pills.
What is this? He defends the Iranian regime all the time. They legally allow child marriage. America does not legally allow child marriage. Do you get it now, dumbass? First of all, I like that you have invented even more ridiculous claims. Okay? I just don't want Iranians to die, buddy.
For the United States to swallow.
I think there's no question about that. I often say that, if you look at what people are talking about in terms of a settlement this week, what they focus on is the nuclear issue, and what they really focus on is
and yes, America does allow
nuclear
child marriage, you fucking idiot, which I oppose. As an American, I oppose it. Why are we having this conversation? We're watching Goat Talk, okay? We're done. We're done with these silly distractions. It's Goat Talk time. It's Goat Talk. Fucking hate dumbasses, man. Ruining my Goat Talk. Goat talk, where's Jiang? Okay, dude. This is real goat talk. Okay, calm down. Right in front of my salad while I'm watching goat talk, you're over here doing this bullshit. We're doing real goat talk, not fake goat talk. Professor Jiang is fake goat talk, okay? Chris Hedges frowns at child marriage. Chris Hedges frowns at everything. That's just his automatic, that's just his face.
Enrichment issue. Hardly anybody seems to be saying anything about things like reparations, sanctions, who controls the Strait of Hormuz moving forward, what about American military bases in the region, and furthermore, the Iranians are deeply interested in getting some sort of security arrangement put in place so that Israel and the United States don't attack Iran again in 6 months. These are hugely complicated issues. There are a good number of them, and I think they have to be settled as well as the nuclear issue. But even on the nuclear issue, Chris, it's not clear to me where this all leads. The United States would like to eliminate Iran's nuclear enrichment capability completely, but it seems quite clear that the Iranians are unwilling to do that. Furthermore, it seems that the Americans or the United States and the Israelis want all of that enriched uranium that Iran has, the uranium that is enriched up to 60%. They want it taken out of the country. But the Iranians have said very clearly that that's not going to happen. Obviously, some compromises are going to have to be made here, but those compromises will not be easy to make. I don't think they'll be made quickly. And then the question is, how is Trump going to sell them, especially to the Israelis and to Israel's supporters in the United States? So what we're saying here, I think, is that even on the nuclear issue alone, it's a very complicated matter. But when you throw in all the other issues as well, it's just hard to see how you get any sort of what one might call meaningful peace agreement.
You have the Netanyahu government threatening to resume attacks on Iran, even unilaterally. And the other question is how much influence Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff, I mean, two utterly inept negotiators, of course, but two, and let's call them what they are. I mean, they're Zionist assets. Are they able, as they were with the inception of this war, to sell the Trump administration on resuming on what Netanyahu wants, which is resuming attacks?
Look, I think even without Kushner and Witkoff, who are Israeli assets for sure, there is so much pressure from pro-Israel forces in the United States on Trump that there are real limits to what he can do vis-a-vis Iran in terms of making concessions to the Iranians. But the problem here is that Trump is also feeling pressure from the other side. And what I mean by that is if he doesn't settle this, and especially if he escalates, as the Israelis would like him to do, then we're heading on a course where the international economy is going to go off a cliff. I mean, the incentive for President Trump to settle this conflict as quickly as possible has mainly to do with economic considerations. There's a great danger here that if we continue on this path, and again, if we escalate especially, that this will have disastrous consequences for the world economy, which includes the United States. And of course, that will have disastrous consequences for the midterm elections. So Trump is desperate to shut this one down. So he has that pressure on one side, and then he has pressure from Israel on the other side. And again, we cannot emphasize strongly enough that Israel has no interest in settling this war. Israel wants to see Iran finished off. They want to see Iran decisively defeated. And as we both know, if anyone has won this war at this point and is likely to come out of this war as a winner, it's Iran, not the United States. Well, given that reality, the Israelis are going to continue to put pressure on the United States to stay at war. So I would argue that even if President Trump is able to extend the ceasefire and get a framework for a future agreement in place, the Israelis and their supporters in the United States will be working overtime not to make that framework morph into a peaceful agreement. They'll be working overtime to undermine that framework and get the United States back at war with Iran.
One of the fascinating kind of subtexts of this was Lebanon. Israel, almost when the ceasefire began, started pounding Lebanon. But Trump, said it had to stop. I mean, Israel's has a very kind of elastic
fuck up,
vision of
chat.
ceasefires. It's still attacking Lebanon, but this was a fundamental demand on the part of Iran. They said, well, we've stopped attacking GCC bases in GCC countries with your allies, so you have to stop attacking our allies. This is a regional ceasefire, and they, while Israel has certainly breached the ceasefire in Lebanon, as they do daily in Gaza, nevertheless, it does seem, I don't know what your take on it is, that was a huge concession on the part of the Trump administration to Iranian demands.
Well, excuse me, the Trump administration had no choice but to get Israel to stop attacking Hezbollah and Iran for a brief period of time, at least, so that the Iranians would open the Strait of Hormuz. That's what they wanted. And Trump was able to get the Israelis to make a small concession, which is to say the Israelis agreed to a 10-day ceasefire. Just think about it. It's a 10-day ceasefire. And I've been following it, and it's not even much of a ceasefire at this 10-day period. But the idea that the Israelis are interested in a meaningful ceasefire is not a serious argument. What the Israelis are interested in is creating a civil war in Lebanon for two reasons. One, to weaken Hezbollah and to take Hezbollah's attention off of Israel. And number two, to weaken Lebanon overall. This is standard Israeli tactics. And the Israelis will continue to attack Lebanon and Hezbollah in good part, not just to weaken Hezbollah, but in good part to undermine any negotiations between Iran on one hand and the United States on the other. It's obvious that for Iran, Hezbollah is a very important ally, and they want to do everything they can to help Hezbollah. The Israelis fully understand that, and the Israelis understand that if they continue to attack Hezbollah and continue to keep the situation in Lebanon as a hot conflict, that this will limit how much Iran will be able to concede to the United States. So this is one of the reasons I find it hard to imagine that you're ever going to settle this conflict in any meaningful way.
You wrote the book with Stephen Walt on the Israel lobby. We've certainly seen a diminishing of the power of the Israel lobby in AIPAC. The Democrats now kind of run from it, whereas they, couldn't wait to get key slots at the AIPAC convention. Do you think the Israel lobby is weakened enough that its kind of death grip on the American political system is no longer as effective?
I think in terms of the public discourse in the United States, the lobby has lost. When Steve and I wrote the article and then the book in 2006 and 2007, the lobby was able to basically control the discourse and greatly limit the criticism of Israel, the U.S.-Israeli relationship, and the lobby itself. Those days are gone. The discourse today about the lobby and criticism of Israel, this is all out in the open in ways that are actually hard for me to imagine, Chris, given where we were at back when Steve and I wrote the article in the book. But that's at the level of the discourse. At the level of policy, and especially with regard to the Trump administration, which, as you know, has 2 more years and 9 months in power, the lobby still has a stranglehold on the Trump administration. And there's no evidence that Trump has been able to break away from that stranglehold and act independently, to act simply in America's interests. So in terms of U.S. policy, I think the lobby is as strong as ever. Now, how that plays out after the next presidential election is a different matter, because you see both in the Democratic Party and in the Republican Party that there are politicians who are beginning to question the relationship with Israel, who are beginning to question whether associating themselves with AIPAC is a good thing, and so forth and so on. But I would still bet that it'll be, a good 10 years before our policy towards Israel is not seriously affected by the lobby.
So what does that mean vis-a-vis Iran? So if the Israel lobby retains that kind of power, and in a way Trump was even more obsequious, because the Israel lobby has been calling for a war on Iran for 4 decades, and other administrations have resisted for all of the reasons that are now apparent. But how does that play out? I mean, it looks like a very dark scenario.
Well, it's hard for me to imagine, Chris, that we get a meaning.
You have to remember Mersheimer's assessment on defanging the Israel lobby's power in public consciousness also was much faster than he ever could have perceived. So when he says 10 years, you have to understand, like, that's not an assurance. Okay? That doesn't mean it will absolutely take 10 years. It could be much faster than that.
Meaningful peace agreement between the United States and Iran because of the power of the lobby. I think the only argument against that position is that the economic consequences of continuing this war against Iran will be so drastic, will hurt the international economy and therefore the American economy so much that we have no choice but to work out an arrangement with Iran that recognizes the fact that Iran is the winner in this conflict, and that there's not going to be any more attacks on Iran down the road. That may happen. It's very hard to say just how this is going to play out over the next few months. But I think if that doesn't happen, in other words, if we don't get to the precipice and we're not on the verge of falling off the precipice, I think that Israel will make it impossible for us to have a meaningful agreement with the Iranians.
Let's talk about the tactic of seizing Iranian ships by the Trump administration.
Well, I thought that last Friday, when the ceasefire between Israel and Lebanon was in place, and the Iranians said that they would open up the strait, and in fact began to open up the strait, that the ceasefire was then fully in place and that we would begin moving forward in the negotiations in Islamabad. It looked very promising last Friday when these events took place. Then President Trump said that he was not going to take the U.S. blockade off the Strait of Hormuz, which is another way of saying he was not going to take the U.S. blockade off of Iran. And this is after Iran has just agreed to end its blockade. And he also said that the United States was going to stop and board ships that were headed toward Iran or were leaving from Iran. And the end result is that the Iranians did a 180-degree turn, and they said they're reclosing the Strait of Hormuz. And that's where we are today. This is completely counterproductive. Forget the legality of what we did. This is completely counterproductive. You got the ceasefire in place on Friday, And you're talking about having negotiations in Islamabad early this week in the wake of putting the ceasefire in place. Why wouldn't you just put an end to the American naval blockade on Iran? It just makes common sense. Why would you say you're going to keep the blockade on? Why would you say that you're going to board Iranian ships and then actually go out and board an Iranian ship after you shoot it up? It just doesn't seem to make any sense to me. And this is, one of the principal aspects of Trumpian foreign policy. It is rather bizarre and doesn't seem to comport with what one would consider sort of rational legal behavior. So I, to be honest, don't understand what's going on here.
Isn't it in their interest to have Iranian oil on the market?
I didn't mention that, but you're exactly right. That's why we were allowing Iranian oil to come through the strait out into the global market. You're exactly right. And
yeah, it doesn't make any sense. If the goal is to alleviate some of the pressure that our allies are experiencing in this energy crisis, and that is America's ultimate responsibility and ultimate role, then continuing the blockade or adding a secondary blockade to the Strait of Hormuz is the most idiotic move that you could possibly do. And it makes no sense because it's just Donald Trump hurting his own ultimate goals here.
Here they are threatening to cut it off. In addition to the fact they're making it less likely that the other side trusts you, the Iranians trust you, and that you can work out a deal. It seems that the Trump administration wants a deal. They should want a deal because, as I said to you before, they can't go up the escalation ladder and win, number one. And number two, they are in danger of taking the international economy off a cliff. So they should want a deal here. And sometimes President Trump acts like he wants a deal. Other times he acts like he doesn't want a deal. And this is an instance of that. And then you add to it, as you did, the fact that we really do need that Iranian oil out in the global market to do everything possible to keep oil prices as low as possible.
Well, the reason great powers have a diplomatic corps is that they're multilingual, bicultural, they understand their adversary as well as their allies, and the Trump administration has gutted the State Department. So one wonders if it's just, on the one hand, they may want a deal. On the other hand, they're utterly unable, perhaps, to read Iranian political power and Iranian culture.
I agree with you. I mean, there's no question that just at a very general level, President Trump does not respect expertise. He thinks he's a genius. He thinks he knows everything. He doesn't have to rely on experts. And he doesn't need anyone from the State Department or any area experts inside the government to tell him what to do. He knows what to do. So there is that dimension to it. But there's another dimension to this, Chris, that's even more worrisome.
Yeah, at the end of the day, no matter how sound your analysis is, if one of the two parties is just not playing by any rules or any reason, like if one party is behaving in this unbelievably illogical manner that where they keep scoring own goals over and over again, it's going to be quite difficult to conduct proper analysis.
And that is that it sometimes strikes me that President Trump is a mad king. I don't know if you read the story in the Wall Street Journal about what life is like inside President Trump's White House in the course of this war against Iran. And the story is told in there, and the White House has not refuted this story, that after those two pilots were shot down earlier this month, and President Trump was told about this, he was hysterical. He was hysterical for a few hours. He was just beside himself with rage, to the point where his aides had to keep him outside of the room while they decided how to deal with the problem. And occasionally, one of the aides would go out and brief him on what was going on. You want to just think about what's going on here. Here is the President of the United States in the midst of a serious crisis. An American fighter plane, an F-15, has been shot down inside of Iran. There are 2 pilots who are missing. They have to rescue them. And this is going to take some careful planning. This is a crisis. The President of the United States is throwing a tantrum, an hours-long tantrum, according to the Wall Street Journal. Again, to the point where he has to be taken outside of the room. Can you imagine this happening with JFK during the Cuban Missile Crisis? It's unimaginable. It's unimaginable to me that any president would act this way. And it's very interesting how little attention this episode has got in the mainstream media. But it, I think, speaks volumes about the dangers that we face with President Trump in control. If we get into a really serious crisis, something beyond the actual war that's now taking place that threatens to escalate, that involves maybe China or Russia, and he's in charge, this is a very frightening thought. And I would imagine in that circumstance, he'll be pushed out of the room again and his aides will take over. But what does that tell you about the United States? And just one final point on this. You want to remember that President Trump is the kind of person who thinks he knows everything, and therefore even his aides don't matter that much. He is the ultimate decider, period, end of story. And if this is our ultimate decider, if this is our sovereign in an extreme crisis, I think we're in real trouble.
Well, he was reportedly against the advice of his military and intelligence chiefs. He believed the Iranians would not seize the Strait of Hormuz.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think if you go back to the original decision to attack Iran, and you read, there were 2 New York Times stories on this whole matter. The second one was just filled with details. It's very clear that, except for Pete Hegseth, who really doesn't matter very much, because I don't think anybody, even President Trump, takes him that seriously. But all of his other advisors were very, very skeptical, if not opposed, to this operation. They understood full well that this was playing with fire. But nevertheless, President Trump dismissed their concerns, and he went along with the Israelis, who basically sold him a bill of goods. It was the head of Mossad, and David Barnea, and Prime Minister Netanyahu, who convinced President Trump that we would win a quick and decisive victory. And then, just to build on your point, therefore we wouldn't have to worry about Iran closing the Strait of Hormuz. We would win very quickly. But the fact is, if Trump had listened to his advisors and he had carefully examined them as to why they were reticent or opposed to going to war against Iran, he might not have done this. In fact, I think it's highly likely he would not have done it. But again, he didn't really care what they had to say, and he was willing to listen to the Israelis. And he should have understood that the Israelis were selling him a bill of goods, but apparently he didn't.
Let's talk about the global economy. So, a guess. Some oil is getting out. Not a lot. I mean, an estimate, maybe 5%. Countries, India, Japan, Philippines, they're already in serious trouble. This, if it's not a total blockage, this trickle is already having seismic ramifications. So talk a little bit about where we are now in terms of the global economy and potentially where we could go. And then there's all sorts of other factors like fertilizer, which I mean, which is also passed through the strait and is because it's an oil derivative, and the effect on food prices.
Yeah, I mean, there are a number of dimensions to the economic catastrophe that's staring us in the face. And again, I like to talk about this as the Titanic hitting the iceberg. And it's important to emphasize the Titanic has not hit the iceberg. And although there's no question that serious damage has been done and will be done, catastrophic damage will be done if we hit the iceberg. And of course, this is why President Trump is deeply committed, I believe, to shutting this one down as quickly as possible, because he does not want to hit the iceberg. First of all, there is the helium, as you point out. There's a significant helium shortage in the world because the strait has been shut down, and helium is very important.
I think one thing that remains, regardless of the why he's doing this, is the fact that seemingly he's unstoppable. Like, there is, I mean, he's advancing the interests of Israel first and foremost. So obviously that is part of the reason why there isn't as much pushback. But he is unrestrained. It's obvious that when you have a dementia-addled, brain-diseased commander-in-chief who gets to make these decisions unilaterally, it's virtually impossible to figure out what the goals are here. All we can do is just chirp on the fucking sidelines and try to make sense of the senseless chaos. Syphilis one hits harder, yo. I mean, I don't think he fucks, so I don't know if he has tertiary syphilis.
Important for producing microchips. Furthermore, there's been a significant slowdown in the amount of aluminum coming out of the Gulf, and aluminum.
Do you think if Bibi loses the election, this all falls apart because Trump doesn't have a personal relationship with the replacements? No, because Israel's wishes are not being communicated to Trump because Trump loves Benjamin Netanyahu personally. I don't think Trump even likes Benjamin Netanyahu that much. Israel's goals are not being advanced just by Benjamin Netanyahu either. Naftali Bennett would have similar attitudes. He might be more pliant to American restraint, to extend a lifeline to Israel. However, there's no indication that he will move differently than Benjamin Netanyahu has. And last but not least, this has nothing to do with Trump's personal connection to Benjamin Netanyahu. Justice has nothing to do with Benjamin Netanyahu's singular ambitions. This is about the Greater Israel Project. It was being advanced before Bibi, and it will continue to be advanced after Bibi. There's also major swaths of the population that are on board with it, right? Not only has Netanyahu been able to build a governing coalition over and over again and has been in charge for the longer half of the last 4 decades, but this is a democratic project. Do with that information what you will, right? There's majority approval for this. So whoever comes next will probably either try to manage that and behave in a more restrained manner, at least in the interim, or they'll lean into it in the same way that Benjamin Netanyahu did.
Really matters as well. Then there are the fertilizers. 30% of the world's fertilizers come through the Gulf, and hardly any are getting out. And this is going to have huge consequences for the production of food around the world. Remember, we had this thing called
New Bulwark piece on you? Another one? Oh my God, bro. Another one? What the heck? Okay. I really did think that by this point they would have just given up. I don't know why Was the interview you did this morning? No, not the Zateo one. I don't know. I don't know what to say.
Damn, this guy's good.